Chapter 1242. Yun Yang's actions were indeed intentional. He had purposely fallen from a high altitude, and the moment he landed on the snowy ground, he had immediately channeled the power of his water manifestation and turned himself into a snowflake, blending into the snow on the ground. Then he had followed the wave of snow that had been splashed into the sky, drifting with the wind. He did not particularly care which direction he had been splashed in. It did not matter which direction he had been splashed in. As for the medallion that the Fox King could no longer sense, Yun Yang had sent it into his deific consciousness at once. The existence of the Fox King's medallion might be a form of insurance that could provide considerable help, but it was also equivalent to carrying the Fox King's deific consciousness with him. If the medallion was not targeted, the Fox King would be able to find him at once no matter where he went. Such a hidden threat was a safety taboo that had to be avoided. If he were to meet with danger, he would not give up on this aid. He could just take out the medallion immediately. However, if it was not necessary, Yun Yang was determined not to simply use this trump card that could be called a double-edged sword. The snowflake that Yun Yang had turned into drifted forward with the wind, taking in the entire grassy plain before him. It was said that the population of the demon race was huge and densely packed, but I've been drifting for half a day, why haven't I seen anything? Did that old thing throw me into the Forsaken Land? Not long after, however, Yun Yang noticed something different. This did not seem to be the usual base of the demon race. On the vast expanse of white land there seemed to be something moving? The reason why he had not seen it before was probably because the demons were all the same color as the grassy plain. In his haste, he had not been able to differentiate the snow-white bear demons, wolf demons, fox demons, and, all in all, without exception, they were all snow-white without a hint of other colors. After observing them carefully for a while, Yun Yang confirmed another thing. Not only did these fellows look snow-white, they were also very heavy. They were so lazy that it was infuriating, so lazy that they could lie in the snow and not move for a long time. Wasn't he too good at enduring the cold? Yun Yang was able to move freely in the snowfield, just because his mystical chi was thick and his cultivation base was profound. He had also transformed into the water form of drifting snow, so the chill of the snowfield could do nothing to him. But what about the demonic beasts? Yun Yang roughly estimated that many of them were only low-level beginner-level beasts, and their combat power was negligible. How could they resist the cold so well? At the same time that he discovered that there were many low-level beginner beasts in the snowfield, Yun Yang also discovered that there were beings with abilities that were different from the Great Dawn continent. There were powerful auras flowing faintly in a few large snowy mountains far away, but these were the few auras that could make Yun Yang feel wary in the tens of thousands of miles of snowfield before him. Yun Yang knew that the owners of these auras were not easy to deal with. He, who had always adhered to the strategy of being willing to sail a ship for 10,000 years, naturally would not act rashly. After observing for a long time, he realized that the few auras seemed to be hiding their tracks, but they were actually concealing their presence. Deep down, they were all domineering, giving the impression that they were minding their own business. To be clear, if you don't provoke me, I won't provoke you either. Yun Yang calculated and already had an idea in his heart: territory. Territorial awareness. This side is mine and that side is yours. The demonic race and the human race had very different attitudes towards the scope of individual forces. It was rare for the human powerhouses to spread their deific consciousness so brazenly, but the demonic race's powerhouses paid special attention to their own territories. If they did not spread their deific consciousness for a long time, the surrounding opponents would instead think that they were at the end of their tether and covet it. Based on Yun Yang's standpoint and his usual approach, it was appropriate for him to stir up some trouble now, such as luring a demon king into another demon king's territory and causing them to fight each other to the death, resulting in both sides suffering heavy losses. Or perhaps, he could use a certain treasure of heaven and earth to gather the demon kings in the nearby regions and fight it out so that he could reap the benefits. However, Yun Yang had other motives for this trip. At least for now, he did not want to cause any additional trouble. He quickly identified the direction and headed towards the center of the demon steppes. Yun Yang had two important objectives for this trip. One was to investigate if the god of wine was really related to the demonic race. Or was it related to the Four Seasons Tower and the demonic race? If so, could the bones of the 12 celestial beings in the god's grave be used to complete the task and end this case? Or was there something else that he had not thought of? As for the other objective, what was the purpose of the demon race's abduction of the people of the Bound of Universe all these years? What did they want? Just like that, the snowflakes fluttered for tens of thousands of miles. When Yun Yang was about to walk out of the snowfield, he roughly knew the name of this snowfield. White Plains. It was a simple and crude name, but it was a name that went straight to his heart. The name alone was not enough to disappoint Yin Yang. What disappointed Yin Yang more was that there were almost no treasures of heaven and earth in this vast white plains. Even if there were a few, they were all within the territory of those powerful existences, and they had to be very, very close to those existences. As for other places, forget about treasures of heaven and earth, even the roots of grass were almost eaten up. This was probably the fundamental reason why the tens of thousands of miles of white plains were so vast, where the strong grew stronger and the weak grew weaker. Although Yun Yang had long heard that the demon clan was not wealthy, he was still surprised that they could be this poor. However, there were also things that caught Yun Yang's attention on the white plains. Even with Yun Yang's speed of movement, the long journey of tens of thousands of miles took some time. When he was about to reach the border of white plains, Yun Yang suddenly realized that there was a type of fruit tree growing in countless places. Each tree had a diameter of several feet and each leaf was several feet wide. The leaves were milky white, like huge white clouds that stood in the air. Under the leaves hung many fruits that were as big as sacks, falling down heavily. Yun Yang had floated over to check more than once to make sure that there was no trace of demonic qi on the trees, but they were filled with the pulse of life. The sack-sized fruits weighed about 200 caddies each, and each tree could bear hundreds of fruits. More than half of them were white while the rest were either yellow or red. Looking at them, they looked like lanterns of various colors hanging on the trees. To be able to grow in such a frigid area, the trees were obviously not afraid of the cold. Yun Yang collected the 3 fruits and entered his deific consciousness space. Naturally, there was one for each color: white, yellow, and red. When Yun Yang took a break, he opened the fruits to observe them and found that they contained something similar to rice. It tasted sweet and fragrant, soft but not greasy, with a hint of spiritual qi. It was an excellent food to fill one's stomach. After opening all 3 fruits, he confirmed the meaning of the fruits of each color. The white fruits were still in the growth stage. Although they could be used, they tasted bitter and difficult to swallow. The yellow ones were half-ripe, tasteless, barely edible. Only the red ones were ripe and suitable for consumption. This is good stuff. Yun Yang looked at the many trees in the white plains, his eyes reddening. One fruit alone was equivalent to 170 to 180 caddies of rice. Not only did the ripe fruits taste good and could fill one's stomach, they also contained spiritual qi. Although the spiritual qi was very thin and much weaker than the most common of heaven and earth treasures, if a person were to eat such fruits for a long period of time, what kind of concept would that be? A tree could grow at least 300 to 400 fruits. Even if one fruit was only 100 caddies, one could still harvest more than 30,000 caddies. However, how many trees were there in this area that he could see with his naked eyes? The most conservative estimate would be at least 10,000 trees. In other words, this piece of land alone could produce at least 4 million caddies of high-quality rations? Yet, how much could the demon race eat to digest so much food? How many places like this were there in the entire White Plains? Calculating in this way, it wasn't just unusual, it was simply horrifying when one thought about it and horrifying when one observed it. Yun Yang plucked another leaf from the fruit tree. He could not help being shocked when he felt the weight on his hand. Yun Yang was already at the level of a supreme saint. He could move mountains and fill oceans with just a wave of his hand. Although he could not circulate his mystical qi at the moment, his physical strength was already impressive. Yet, a leaf like this could actually make his hand feel heavy. It had to be at least 1,000 caddies in weight. Yun Yang stared at the snow-white leaf that was about 3 feet thick and 50 to 60 feet wide. He tried to stab it with the tip of his sword, only to find that the leaf was unusually sturdy. Yun Yang injected mystical qi into the sword and managed to cut through the leaf. Juice flowed out from within. The juice was clear and transparent, mixed with a faint fragrance. It was also an excellent drink that could be consumed. Yun Yang tried to take a sip and his eyes could not help but widen. Not only was the juice of the leaf sweet and delicious, it also contained a trace of spiritual qi, not at all inferior to ordinary spiritual tea. If such a fruit tree could grow in the human world, would there still be a need to fear disaster? As Yun Yang's thoughts spun, he connected the dots. With his intellect, how could he not know that there must be unique conditions for a unique creature to grow? For example, the tree's odd form and the fact that it was growing in this snowfield, there must be something special about it. At the very least, the environment it grew in might not be anywhere in the bound of universe or the Tianshan continent. Moreover, the tree might have a lot of requirements for nutrients as well. However, this did not affect Yun Yang's desire. There must be a seal. While the world was vast and full of wonders, there was also adaptability. He believed that there would be a place that was suitable for such a plant to grow. The fruit tree alone was of no use to Yun Yang's cultivation base, but it was a great help to ordinary living beings in this world that could sustain their survival. To put it bluntly, as long as a tree was planted, a village could not go hungry for a year. To any commoner, this was more important than many treasures of heaven and earth. Therefore he had to get his hands on this item. Yun Yang had the intention to snatch it, but he had to plan before he acted. With his cautious personality, he wanted to be fully prepared and not leave any loose ends. Yun Yang studied it again and realized that each of the fruit trees was entangled with the deific consciousness of the demonic race's experts. The fruit trees that seemed to be everywhere were actually being watched over by someone. If Yun Yang could think of it, so could the demonic race. Such a fruit tree was an excellent strategic resource. Of course, the demonic race would protect it with utmost care. It was not a problem to obtain a fruit or a leaf, as it could be easily obtained. After all, it was not the root. However, to obtain the entire tree, one would have to first ask the deific consciousness of the experts entangled on the tree. Furthermore, one would have to face the joint attack of many demonic race experts if one intended to do so. The vast expanse of the White Plains and the numerous fruit trees could never be guarded by just one or two experts' deific consciousness. However, Yun Yang had no qualms about alerting the enemy. In spite of this, Yun Yang could not care less. With a single thought, the White Plains shook violently. The towering trees that had been standing still were uprooted from the ground with a loud rumble. They flew into the air with large lumps of ice and snow, disappearing instantly. The moment the tree disappeared, countless demonic beasts flew over from the distant sky, emerged from the snow, or materialized out of thin air. Each of them looked at the mess on the ground as if they had lost their parents and let out furious roars. Who did this? Countless demonic beasts rushed over, all of them prostrated themselves in front of the huge pits, letting out angry roars. Who stole the tree of life? The tree of life. The name of the fruit tree was so grand, but as the name suggested, it was obvious that the fruit tree was the lifeline of the demonic race. However, it was not only the demonic race who thought so. Yun Yang had the same thought as well. With tens of thousands of trees like this as the foundation, no matter how many more people the demonic race produced, at the very least, there would not be any demons who would starve to death. Therefore, the name of the tree of life was well deserved. The tree was just like its name. Yun Yang, who had turned into the form of the wind, looked at the countless demons that were covered in snow. It was as if he had seen an avalanche that had gathered hundreds of thousands, millions and tens of millions of demons. Everywhere he looked, there were demonic beasts everywhere. The densely packed beasts were still gathering from all directions. First level, second level, seventh level, surpassing level, king level, supreme level, foxes, tigers, lions, rats, snakes, and many others. In short, there were many of them. Other than the absence of feline demonic beasts, the rest were almost all restrained. Even the surging demonic aura was not enough to describe the current atmosphere. The demonic aura was everywhere, everywhere it went. Yun Yang now had a clear understanding. If he could kill all the demonic beasts in front of him and take their cores, he would become the richest man in the entire bound of universe, and he would be the only one of a kind. Yun Yang pinched his thigh forcefully, nipping the suicidal thought out of his mind. Not to mention anything else, just by looking at the number of demonic beasts here, if he were to show himself, he would be reduced to ashes in an instant. To put it simply, every single demon beast spit was enough to drown him to death. Right now, this wasn't an exaggeration, but a reality. It was more than enough. If they died somewhere else, there might be a chance of resurrection. However, if they died here, they could only become the feces of the demonic beasts. Even his body and divine soul were the same. Becoming the richest man in Shenhuang is actually not a difficult task. We can take it slow. Yun Yang comforted her and drifted away leisurely. What demon core? What fur? It was all calcium. But why does my heart hurt so much? 2-in-1, apt, 2-in-1, mobile reading access, M. Chapter 1243. Yun Yang then comforted himself in his heart. What he had gained in the Holy Land of Tianfa was enough to increase his net worth tenfold. It was important to be content with what one had. Asking for too much was the way to seek death. He was the wisest one, how could he not have this bit of self-control? Besides, it was not like he had gained nothing. Even if he could not get anything from the two main goals, it was already a huge gain beyond his expectations if he could only bring the tree of life back and find a way to cultivate it. Thinking of this, Yun Yang finally had no more attachments and floated out leisurely. He could hear that there was already a scuffle behind him, most of them blaming each other and pushing the blame onto each other. Where's the tree of life? You guys were watching this part. Bullsh asterisk T, isn't there your deific consciousness on it? Bullsh asterisk T, my deific consciousness is on it too, how can you blame me? Bang bang bang. Then there was a scuffle. Yunyang flicked his sleeves and ignored them. Despite the heated battle behind him, he walked as he pleased. Along the way there was a caravan of the demon race. They were escorting hundreds of carts of fruits of the Tree of Life towards the most famous demon race city, Sky Crown City in the Demon Plain. Seeing that there was a forest oasis around them, the leader of the caravan, a Saint King-level white bear, finally heaved a sigh of relief. Arriving here meant that the most difficult time had passed, and the road ahead was smooth and smooth, with no more dangers to speak of. This time's adventure in the White Plains could be said to be a narrow escape, but in the end they still obtained the White Plains Snow Lotus Seed and more than one Snow Eagle feather. This was a considerable amount of wealth. In addition, they had unexpectedly received a mission to escort the Fruit of Life into Sky Crown City. That was an unexpected reward of 1,000 Saint coins, a windfall from the sky. He had always wanted to return to Qingguan City, and he had accepted a task that was convenient for him. Although the other party had asked him to bring along a ring that looked simple and unadorned, but he didn't know what was inside it, it was just a matter of convenience. As long as he was careful, who would know that they had hidden a spatial ring? Even if they were robbed, as long as he could keep the ring, it would not matter even if he lost the Fruit of Life. But, what was that on the road ahead? It couldn't be a robbery, right? The leader of the caravan, the bare-headed man, looked at the black things on the side of the road indifferently, but his nose picked up a special smell and he felt dizzy. The dizziness here was not a negative state in the general sense. Poor bear demon like me. Once dusk falls, my eyes don't work very well. Booty can smell this scent even from thousands of miles away. I won't miss it. That sweet smell made me feel like I was dreaming. It shook my divine soul and shook my will. That wooden barrel that looked like a small mountain was clearly filled with honey. Moreover, it had to be a special kind of honey with spiritual energy. Oh my God. The bare-headed man couldn't take it anymore. His saliva flowed down like a river. Salivating wasn't even enough to describe it. On the side of the road, near the barrels of honey, there was a purple-furred fox demon. In front of him was a table, and other than a few side dishes, there was only a big bowl of yellowish sticky honey. It was that honey that emitted an enchanting sweet smell. This damn fox demon was actually drinking honey with side dishes. Didn't the others drink wine? How dare he? How dare he? The white bear's saliva flowed freely, and his heart was filled with anger. Did you do it on purpose? Did you do it on purpose? You definitely did it on purpose. Otherwise, why would you be drinking honey on the side of the road when I was walking here? Not only did you drink honey, but it smelled so good and there was so much of it. It was really enough. There were at least a few hundred barrels of it. Wait, a few hundred barrels? The white bear looked at the mountain of honey behind the fox demon. There were so many barrels, so there must be tens of thousands of pounds of honey. What are you doing? You, a fox, can make so much honey. What do you think I am? The white bear's eyes gradually turned ferocious and greedy. I can't bear it. Since I can't bear it anymore, there's no need to bear it anymore. You're clearly forcing me to rob you. The white bear's eyes emitted a terrifying light. He took the lead and rushed forward. He said angrily, "How dare you, fox demon, block the road and rob us?" The other demon companions who followed the white bear all felt their brains short-circuiting and their heads spinning. When did they block the road and rob us? Why didn't we see that they had the slightest intention of robbing us? Could it be that our experience is too shallow? Our heads are really hurting, dizzy, and our brains are not enough. From the looks of it, the truth is that you want to rob them, right? The fox demon raised his head and looked at the white bear in surprise. What? The white bear said angrily, "Brothers, they want to rob us of our goods. Let's go." The brothers looked at each other. Big brother, even if you're a money grubber, you should at least take some time to be honest, right? We've accepted a commission to escort goods, and no one has robbed us along the way. We're very lucky. But now you want to create one out of nothing. What are you trying to do? Although we all know what you're trying to do, can't you be a little more honest? Don't find such a vulgar excuse. The next moment, White Bear's majestic body had already rushed forward impatiently. He roared fiercely, "Let me tell you, you despicable fox demon, how dare you rob us of our Tao? I won't forgive you. Let me tell you, unless you give me all this honey, I won't let today's matter rest." As he spoke, the white bear impatiently picked up the big bowl of honey on the table and drank it in one gulp. His eyes widened. This is not ordinary honey. It's not even the ordinary high-grade stuff, it's purple crystal honey. Heavens, The next moment, the white bear's eyes turned red. He rushed forward like a whirlwind, and with a wave of his hand, dozens of buckets of honey entered his spatial ring. Then, he waved his hand again, obviously not satisfied and not wanting to let go of any bit. I'm so happy. If this is a dream, please let me wake up later. Unfortunately, sweet dreams are never easy to wake up from. A hand that was like an iron hoop suddenly grabbed the white bear's wrist, ending his happy dream. Let me go. I want to keep all the honey. The white bear was furious. At this moment, apart from the priceless purple crystal honey, there was nothing else in his eyes. However, the next moment he felt his wrist tighten. With a crack, one of his bones was broken. The white bear felt a sharp pain in his heart. He instinctively looked up and was shocked. The one who grabbed his wrist was the fox demon. At this moment, the fox demon was so angry that all the hair on his body stood on end. His eyes were like a deep whirlpool, like a sky full of stars spinning and twinkling in his eyes. His originally thin and small body suddenly swelled up. His entire body became abnormally huge, and the difference in size between him and White Bear was immediately reversed. A crown that had taken shape shone in midair, especially eye-catching. Still holding on to White Bear, he asked word by word, "White Bear, what are you doing?" The whole nest was silent. The White Bear wet his pants and was dumbfounded on the spot. A Saint Emperor-level demonic beast. The White Bear's mind was blank. The fox demon had a crown on his head, so it was very likely that he was a peak Saint Emperor-level demonic beast. He was already the strongest person in his team, but he was only a third-grade Saint King. How could he have rashly provoked such a death god? "You said I wanted to rob you?" The purple fox demon glared at the White Bear. His eyes were like arrows, as if he wanted to eat him. No, Senior, please spare me. This is a misunderstanding." The White Bear knelt down with a thud. His chubby face was actually simple and honest. "Senior, please spare me." Misunderstanding? Spare me? The fox demon was so angry that his whole body was trembling. "You White Bear, you are so unreasonable. I didn't provoke anyone. I was just drinking something by the roadside. You keep saying that I robbed you. Where did that come from? It's fine if you're AB***starred, but you rushed up to me and drank my priceless purple crystal honey without saying a word. Not only did you drink it all, you even snatched away dozens of buckets. If I didn't stop you, you wouldn't have left the rest for me, right? The intention of killing and robbing is clear. The fact of relying on force to commit murder is still vivid in my mind. How can there be such a misunderstanding in this world?" The White Bear's furry face had already turned purple from shock. He knelt on the ground, stammering and sweating profusely. The White Bear's brothers also looked at each other and swarmed up to apologize. All of them were sweating profusely, their clothes drenched in sweat. This matter really couldn't be explained no matter what. As long as one wasn't stupid, they could see the whole story and the truth. This was obviously our own boss taking a fancy to the other party's honey. Just look at the saliva at the corner of his mouth, which he hadn't even wiped off yet. What was up with this fellow's obsession with honey? We are bears too. Why aren't we so useless? In fact, it wasn't the first time that this fellow, White Bear, had resorted to stealing honey. They were almost used to it. But this time they had kicked an iron plate. You, a mere holy king, robbed a holy emperor's honey right in front of your face, and you still want to accuse him. There was no one else who had this kind of guts. That was purple crystal honey. The moment it entered his mouth, he should have been able to judge it. To be able to possess such honey and such a large amount at that, how could it be someone easy to deal with? This time White Bear was doomed. White Bear looked up, wanting to cry but having no tears. His heart and soul were about to split apart. The fox demon glared at White Bear and asked sinisterly, "You stupid bear, tell me, how do you want this matter to be settled?" White Bear was instantly pleasantly surprised. It seemed that although this lord was tyrannical, he was still very benevolent. He actually didn't take his life. That was great. Hot tears welled up in his eyes. Just now he was so scared that he couldn't even cry. My lord, I deserve to die. I was bewitched. My lord is magnanimous." He kowtowed continuously. The dozens of barrels of purple crystal honey that had just been stored in the spatial ring were naturally taken out and placed neatly on the ground. White Bear's 7 or 8 brothers saw that the fox demon didn't kill him immediately and came over, kowtowing repeatedly. They were also afraid. The fear in their hearts was no less than White Bear's. It was reasonable for this senior to kill White Bear. It was easy for him to turn over his palm, and no one could say a word of objection. However, everyone was afraid that he would turn over his palm and kill the others as well. This was really something that happened in passing. Senior, please forgive me. The fox demon frowned and said coldly, Forgive me? How can I forgive you? White Bear and his brothers were all stunned. How could he forgive me? How could he forgive me? I'll let you tell me what to do about this matter. Although this purple fox demon was tyrannical and unfathomable, he didn't have the intention to kill. Everyone could see this. Otherwise they probably wouldn't even have the courage to reply. But at the same time, everyone saw that the fox demon seemed to want some benefits or compensation. White Bear trembled and said, Senior, what do you think we should do? As he spoke, he scolded himself. Was this stupid bear blinded by honey? Why did he do such a stupid thing today to provoke such an awesome person? Wasn't he courting death? Couldn't he have just hurried on his way? Look at the trouble he had caused. He was speechless. The purple fox demon shook his head and snorted. If you only wanted some purple crystal honey, then forget it. I can understand the nature of the bear clan. But why did you slander my reputation and say that I was a robber? This is the greatest insult to me. This matter must not be taken lightly. Yes. White Bear lowered his voice and spoke in an extremely gentle tone. The fox demon was still angry. What I want to hear now is a solution. White Bear's head was full of sweat, but he didn't know how to respond. Just now, all his thoughts were on the purple crystal honey and he didn't have the heart to think about anything else. Now it was the same. He couldn't even afford to pay for that bowl of purple crystal honey. How about this? You compensate me for the psychological damage and damage to my reputation. Of course, I've always been a person of great self-restraint, but I was infuriated by you. You'll have to compensate me for the loss of self-restraint. In addition, you'll have to compensate me for the bowl of purple crystal honey. The purple-haired fox demon said righteously, I didn't ask for much from you. That bowl of purple crystal honey, just sell it at the market price. As for the rest, a total of 1 million Saint Origin coins. White Bear wailed loudly, large teardrops streaming down his face. Hehe Mobile Reading Access, M. Chapter 1244. By Xiong cried. I ate your purple crystal honey. As the saying goes, an eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. Since I ate your purple crystal honey, I should compensate you accordingly. Although the market price of purple crystal honey is ridiculously high, I gritted my teeth and accepted it. But that 1 million Saint Origin coins. That's 1 million Saint Origin coins. Could it be that our low cultivation level limits our understanding of the wealth of high-level cultivators? Our Saint Origin coins are not the same as the Bound of Universe's Spirit Stones. Although the Bound of Universe's Spirit Stones contain spiritual energy and can be used as an equivalent item, it can also assist in cultivation. In terms of practical value, it is indeed much better than the Demon Race's Saint Origin coins. But the Demon Race's Saint Origin coins are worth a lot. 1 Saint Origin coin is enough for an ordinary family of 10 to eat 2 months' worth of lifeline fruits. With 300 pieces, one could buy a medium-sized house in a place like Tianguan City where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. If he had more than 10,000 Saint Yuan coins on hand, he could be considered a millionaire. I've worked so hard for so many years and I've only earned a little? You want 1 million Saint Origin coins? It's not even enough to skin all of us Demon Race. What's wrong? The fox demon's face darkened. Do you think I'm asking for too much? Well, the ancient beast here refers to some kind of ancient giant demon beast. The lion's big mouth doesn't live up to its name. Bai Xiong wailed. My lord. The 7 of us have worked so hard for more than 200 years and we haven't saved much money. My lord, you're asking for too much. The fox demon said, What do you mean? You keep saying you don't have money. Are you guys not going to compensate me? It's okay if you don't have money, I'll give you an extra one. Come at me together. If you can survive one move from me, your karma will be gone. If you can't, your karma will be gone too. The Demon King in front of them was a peak Saint Emperor. Even if the 7 of them gave it their all and risked their lives to defend, there was no way they could withstand a single blow from the Demon King. After a single blow, the karma was indeed over and they were all dead. How could it not be over? But the 7 of them understood this and were unwilling to let the game end here. They knelt down in unison and said, Sir, please spare us. It's not that we don't want to compensate you, but we really can't. The 7 of them were covered in tears and snot. We are just small characters who work hard. Our savings are limited. Now it's really hard to earn money. The fox demon snorted, his murderous intent surging. If you don't have money, then you deserve to die. The 7 of them saw that the situation was far from good. Trembling with fear, they began to dig into their pockets. He took out all the things in his spatial ring and piled them up in a messy pile. Senior, this is all we have. If there's anything you like, we won't say anything else. The fox demon was speechless. The demon looked over and saw that there were only a few monster cores and they were all low-grade. There were also some monster beast hides that were all missing. There were also some low-grade medicines that were simply unsightly. After that, there were close to 300,000 St. Yuan coins that were emitting a faint white light. That's it? That's all you have? The fox demon looked at the 7 monsters in front of him in surprise. That's it, that's really it. White Bear said while crying. The fox demon's expression became even uglier. Do you really think I don't know what's going on? With just this little bit of wealth, you're clearly trying to humiliate me. All of you have cultivated to the Saint King level, so no matter what, you should have accumulated a considerable amount of wealth. By only offering this little, you're clearly trying to fool me. White Bear wanted to cry, but no tears came out. "Milord, you've wronged us. We were born into a poor family, and since we were young, we've had no permanent assets. The path of cultivation is rugged and difficult. We've only been able to cultivate to this point because we've been accumulating bit by bit to reach our current realm. Even this wealth in front of us is because we haven't found a wife yet, so we've saved up this little bit of wealth. As he spoke, he felt so uncomfortable that he couldn't speak. We've actually been very diligent, and this amount of wealth is already enough to make us rich in Sky Crown City. We've earned a lot, but how could the cost of cultivation be small? No wonder you wanted to rob me, and it was a thief crying thief. It turns out that you're just 7 poor bastards who have no intention of a fair trade." The fox demon said disdainfully. "Step forward." The 7 monsters took a step forward in confusion, but were shocked to find that the fox demon had actually grabbed White Bear and the others and was using his divine sense to search their bodies. The 7 monsters naturally didn't dare to resist and allowed the fox demon to search their bodies, but they couldn't help but grumble in their hearts. This great monster's cultivation is high, but his vision is really not high. The monster race respects the strong. In front of a powerful great monster, how would we dare to hide anything? Why do we need to search them like this and lower ourselves in vain? The fox demon completely ignored the surprised gazes of the other monsters and carefully searched every corner of their bodies. Suddenly, "What's hanging around your neck?" The fox demon pointed to a white bear. Just now, this fellow had taken out the least, nothing at all, less than 1,000 Saint Origin coins in total. Yes. I prepared." The colorful white bear stammered. "Yes. I prepared a piece of spiritual yuan stone for my fiancée to propose to." As he spoke, he clumsily pulled it from his neck and presented it with both hands. "If Lord likes it, please take it." "Fiancée." The fox demon's eyes immediately focused on that piece of spiritual yuan stone, his gaze strange. What spiritual yuan stone? Wasn't this the spiritual jade of the Bound of Universe? And it was just a piece of mid-grade spiritual jade. In the Bound of Universe, even the most common heaven and earth treasures, spirit roots and spirit seedlings could be exchanged for some mid-grade trading currency. Could it be that spiritual jade was actually so valuable here in the monster realm? This self-deprecating fox demon, no, the black and white double demons of the past, the great sect master Yun, who had been plucked by swallows, could not help but look at the mountainous pile of high-grade spiritual jades and a considerable amount of top-grade spiritual jades in his spiritual sense space. How much were these worth? "Forget it, you can keep it to find a wife," Yin Yang sighed. "It seems that you all have had a hard time. If that's the case, I won't go too far and be kind to others." With a roll of his sleeves, he rolled up about 10,000 Saint Origin coins and said, "Karma begets karma, there's a beginning and an end. Even if you all have had a hard time, it can't be the reason for your mistake this time. I'll only accept the equivalent of a bowl of amethyst honey. As for the other compensation, you all have to do something for me in exchange." "Lord, please speak." Of course, the 7 of them didn't dare to say that a bowl of amethyst honey wasn't worth that much money. Although it is indeed a good thing with a price but no supply, it can be used to beautify a banshee and nourish a cultivator's meridians. But you've gone through a lot of trouble. The market price is at most 12,000 Saint Origin coins, but you took 10,000. But who would dare to say this in their hearts? This lord didn't want their lives and didn't take away all these hundreds of thousands of Saint Origin coins. That was obviously very kind. Why don't you try offending other adults? They would just annihilate you without a second word. This reputed one came here and met an old rival by chance. It was inevitable that we had a fight. Yin Yang sighed. Although I didn't lose, I coincidentally broke the spatial ring. The water has its source and the tree has its roots. If it weren't for this accident, this wouldn't have happened. Yun Yang rolled his eyes. This reputed one was just fretting about what to do with so much amethyst honey, and then a silly bear like you came looking for trouble. Hearing this, White Bear couldn't help thumping his chest and stomping his feet, sobbing uncontrollably. How unlucky am I to have come across such a miraculous event? A demon asked obediently, "May I ask how Senior wants us juniors to serve you? If there's anything you want us to do, we will obey without hesitation. There's nothing else. I just want you all to help me transport these things into Celestial Crown City." Yin Yang was very generous. "As long as you all do this well, I won't pursue this matter." Hearing this, White Bear and the others hurriedly agreed, "Yes, yes. Thank you, Lord, for your magnanimity and magnanimity." The demons were full of flattery, but it came from the bottom of their hearts. This Lord in front of them was really a kind-hearted person. We've already been offended, but he only asked us to do this. It was obvious that he was setting a trap for us and giving us a way out. There was nothing to say about his magnanimity. As for the 10,000 Saint coins, they definitely deserved it. Not to mention that they had drunk the amethyst honey, just the fact that they could feel the aura of a royal Saint Pinnacle expert was not something that could be done with 10,000 Saint coins. But when they turned their heads again, the 7 fairies all had worried expressions on their faces. The Lord Demon King's request was not difficult. It was not even a problem, but how were they going to transport it? The cart was already filled to the brim with their own goods, and the few space rings that they and the others had could not contain so much purple crystal honey at all. If Bai Xiong's space ring was big enough, he would have stored it all at once. How could he only have a small portion, and the others were in a worse situation than Bai Xiong? Then the demons came to a conclusion. The Lord's broken spatial ring was really big to be able to hold so many things. He was indeed a strong expert. "Sir, please wait here for a moment," White Bear said flatteringly. "I'll ask my brothers to quickly get a few carts back. The purple crystal honey is a good item that has a price but no supply. It must not be touched. Even the slightest loss is undeserved." Yin Yang rolled his eyes impatiently. "I know. Go and do it quickly. Bear San." White Bear stood up and ordered, "Quick, go find a few carts for Lord." Bear San was White Bear. Hearing this, he looked conflicted and scratched his head. "Word? Bastard." White Bear was furious. "Go wherever you can get it. If you don't go quickly and delay Lord's business, I'll King kill you." Now that his life was no longer in danger, the domineering aura of a big brother could finally be seen. White Bear agreed quickly and turned to run away. "White Bear, what's your name?" It looked like he could not leave any time soon. "Let's have a chat." Reporting to Lord White Bear Bai. White Bear bowed. "White Bear Bai." The corners of Yun Yang's lips twitched. "White Bear Bai King White Bear, was there a black bear? What about them? What are their names?" "These are my twin brothers, White Bear Black and White Bear Blue." White Bear pointed at the other 2 white bears who were equally brawny. Cough cough. "Good names." Yun Yang coughed. It was obviously all white from what he saw. Why were Black and Blue here? "These are my sworn brothers from the same tribe. This is Black Bear 1, this is Black Bear 2, and this is Flower Bear 7. The one who left is Flower Bear 3. White Bear was ashamed as well. Shen knows that his name isn't nice and loud, but our parents are really uncultured. Shen's sworn brothers, their parents are even more uncultured. Us brothers at least have some color, but they just call it 1, 2, 3. At the end of his speech, he actually became somewhat complacent, as if he was proud of himself. Yin Yang was dumbfounded. He did not understand where his sense of superiority came from at all. Actually, the Bear clan is already much more blessed than the Rat clan. White Bear's sense of superiority grew. "I know a Saint King level cultivator from the Rat clan. His name is Flower Rat 3748. White Bear Bai actually couldn't help but smile. No matter how cultured his parents were, it would be difficult for them to give their thousands of children the same name. And the snake tribe, the flower snake tribe has hundreds of eggs in a single nest. It's normal for them to be called Huaban, ha. As he spoke, White Bear Bai seemed to have said something funny. But it's still not as good as the Big Fish clan. Burk. Under Yun Yang's exasperated gaze, White Bear Bai actually plopped down on the ground, his huge paws slapping the ground as he guffawed like a madman. It was only slightly inferior to laughing until his stomach burst from all the laughter. Ah! His 5 brothers were glaring at him from the side, exasperated. Looking at this fellow who had caused such a disaster, they thought, "Why are you laughing so happily when the biggest trouble is still right in front of you? I just want to ask, you've provoked a god and made your brothers kneel at the edge of life and death, But you're still so happy? It's really hard to name those who can give birth to thousands and tens of thousands of children in a nest. Yin Yang sighed. Is it a mistake for a team like mine to enter Sky Crown City? That's not it. Not many of them will survive even if there are thousands or tens of thousands of them. More than 99% will die young. White Bear Bai's eyes widened. Xian was just thinking of what if they were to give names one by one? Ah. White Bear Bai laughed loudly again and did not stop for a long time. Now, even the expelling race drivers could not hold themselves back anymore. Every demon in the entire convoy looked at this crazy bear with a frown on their faces. Was there something wrong with the bear? It had to be. It was accurate, there was no room for error. The trip to the demon clan had begun. This should be the last major plot of the book. After the demon race, it ended. Apt. Mobile Reading Access, M. Chapter 1245. Listening to White Bear Bai's rambling, Yun Yang was so angry that he almost reverted to his human form. There must be something wrong with this bear's head. He must have forgotten to take the wrong medicine and eaten fake medicine. You've offended me and we haven't settled it yet, have we? You can actually laugh so happily, there's really no one else like you. Yun Yang looked at the bear from the corner of his eyes. This fellow's huge head was definitely not filled with brain matter. It was either cotton, water, or cotton mixed with water. For the first time, Yun Yang felt a tinge of guilt and regret. Although his original intention was to find a team of stupid fellows to enter Qingguan City, this was too stupid. Although it was not a crime to deceive fools these days, it was still a little unbearable. Taking a deep breath to control his temper, Yun Yang said indifferently, the demon race's reproductive ability is much better than that of humans. This is also where our race's advantage lies. It is also because of this reason that the battlefield will never lack our warriors. White Bear Bai grinned. Sir is right, it is very reasonable, it is thought-provoking, and it is well received. Yin Yang felt a little speechless. What was this thing saying? It was very reasonable and thought-provoking? This is something that everyone knows, okay? Oh my god. This reputed one is also forced to make a living this time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come all the way here. Yun Yang, who was the fox demon, began to sigh sadly. White Bear Bai rolled his eyes, his gaze full of disbelief and disbelief. Sir, you too, does that mean, such a prominent figure like you would actually have a financial crisis? The bear race is not smart, but we are not so easily deceived. Forced to make a living? Yin Yang sighed. The strongest among you now is only at the level of a holy king, but how much resources have you consumed to cultivate to this point? Do you feel that the resources consumed now are already astronomical, but the resources needed in the future are even more unimaginable? Even if you work hard every day, you still can't make ends meet. But do you know how much resources are needed to maintain the needs of cultivation at my level? White Bear Bai and his brothers fell into deep thought, their expressions changing. The daily needs of peak holy venerable Xiozhou were beyond their knowledge, but it was also astounding. Although there's a difference in cultivation between you and me as a high-level cultivator, the situation is similar every time you're about to break through. It's normal that you can't run away anymore. You have to rush over in one go. And at that time, how many treasures of heaven and earth will be needed? If there's a sudden lack of resources during the breakthrough, it'll be a waste of effort and the failure of the breakthrough will be secondary. Yin Yang chuckled. Do you know what the most serious consequence is? White Bear stammered, Qi deviation? Yin Yang shook his head. Wrong. Qi deviation is only the lightest case. At that level, only Qi deviation can make people feel lucky. The most serious case is death, with both the spirit and spirit destroyed. The demons sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time. This reputed one is now at the last step. I came out this time to look for some opportunities and try to break through. I didn't expect to meet an old opponent that I've been fighting for half my life. Yun Yang sighed dejectedly. I really don't know if this reputed one's fate has come to an end. My spatial ring was destroyed in the battle a few days ago, and I've lost about 70 to 80% of my resources. I'm only left with this bit of amethyst honey, but I've also met you guys. Do you think 1,000,000 Sank coins would attract this reputed one? White Bear Bai looked ashamed. But you guys. Yin Yang frowned. You don't look young anymore. Why do you only have such a low cultivation base? White Bear Bai said shamefully, we're all relying on our family heritage and innate talents. Our innate talents are shallow, there's no strong cultivator willing to take us in as disciples, and we don't have quality resources to support our cultivation. We're able to come this far because our brothers fought each other every day, slowly honing our skills. What we cultivate is the lowest level of our demon race, the demonic Saint Art. The brothers lowered their heads in dejection, the previous jovial atmosphere gone. What a pity. Yun Yang sighed. You guys are dumb, but your temperaments aren't bad. Especially after such a long period of training, you've forged yourselves into pure gold and unpolished jade. If someone with a discerning eye could sculpt you. It's a pity that this reputed one has to return as soon as possible after dealing with this matter. I don't have time. White Bear Bai and the rest's eyes lit up at once. Although they were a little stupid, they weren't really stubborn. They couldn't understand it no matter what. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to cultivate the most basic demonic saint arts to the current level. Without any eye contact, the 6 bears knelt on the ground. Lord, my lord, we're willing to acknowledge you as our master. Please take us in. Our words are the law, and we won't regret it even if we die 9 times. As soon as they finished, they kowtowed continuously, not listening for a long time. A certain fox demon senior did not know whether to laugh or cry. I only said it's a pity and that I don't have time, but when did I say that I want to take you guys in as disciples? White Bear Bai and the rest only kowtowed. Perhaps it was a collective epiphany that struck these fellows. They did not even use their demonic energy to protect themselves, only causing their 6 heads to bleed profusely. They were dumb, but they knew that this was a rare opportunity for their brothers and that it would not come again if they missed it. It was rare for an almighty figure to reveal a little bit of his true nature, and to admire them as well. If they missed this chance, there might not be another one in this lifetime. Yin Yang frowned. Even if you guys smash your heads, I'll never take you in as disciples. Don't blame me for being too frank. Even if your temperaments are worthy of admiration, your talents are still too poor to be my disciples. White Bear Bai and the rest only kowtowed and begged, please accept us, my lord. Blood had already formed a pool, a ghastly sight to behold, but the sound of the kowtowing did not stop. Instead, it grew louder and deeper. White Bear Bai pleaded desperately, my lord, although we brothers have some cultivation base, we're still the lowest of the lowest in this demon plane. No demon has ever looked up to us and no demon has ever looked us in the eye. Walking in the demon plane, even a small demon that can be poked to death with a finger dares to humiliate us. It's just because we don't have a backer. Even though we're angry, we don't dare to offend them. We're suffering. Please have mercy, my lord. We want to become stronger. We want to become demon kings too. White Bear Bai kowtowed to the ground, and with a loud thud, a large pool of blood spurted out. If we miss this chance, there'll be no hope for us in this lifetime. Please have mercy, my lord. Yun Yang finally sighed. All right. Get up, all of you, you gluttons. I'll probably stay here for a few months. During this period of time, you can ask me if you have any questions. However, there's one thing you have to understand. You're not my disciples. If you dare to show off in the name of my disciples, I'll take your lives regardless of the reason. Yin Yang said, will this do? Just take it as a form of good karma that I've forged in this world of mortals. White Bear Bai and the rest kowtowed hard. Disciples pay respect to master. I've said that I won't take you in. This will never happen. Whether master accepts us or not, in our hearts, we're master's disciples. Yin Yang sighed. Get up quickly. What's the point of all these big and burly men kneeling and sprawling? White Bear and the others kowtowed once more before standing up. Although their heads were bleeding profusely, and blood flowed all over the ground, all of them had smiles on their faces and were in high spirits. Master. I've told you many times, don't call me master, Yin Yang sighed again and again. I really don't know if it's right or wrong to take you fellows in, is it karma or ill-fated karma? White Bear Bai and the rest only smiled foolishly, but no one answered him. Obviously they were not really stupid. These Saint coins, and Qingguan City, and the spiritual crystal that fellow took out just now, it's obviously from the bound of universe. How can it be used as a token of love? Is there a secret behind this? Yun Yang began to clear up his doubts. As he got closer to the densely populated demon cities, he could no longer completely conceal himself with his manifestation powers. He had to arrange a public identity for himself so that it would be convenient for him to carry out his follow-up actions. At the same time, he had to familiarize himself with some basic affairs of the demon race so that he would not be exposed. Otherwise, why would he go in when he would be in the dark after entering? Hua Xiongsan had gone to look for a carriage, but with his demonic bloodline and financial resources, it was estimated that he would not be able to return anytime soon. The bear demons eagerly set up a tent for their master, and respectfully invited their master to sit and wait. Then they all squeezed into the tent one by one. The closer he was to his master, the better. This situation naturally formed a unique tea party. After some conversation, Yunyang finally had a more intuitive understanding of the Myriad Demon Plain. The Myriad Demon Plain was indeed a barren land. There was not enough to eat, not enough to drink, and the cultivation resources were so scarce that it made one's hair stand on end. Although there was a heaven-defying grain fruit like the lifeline fruit, it was far from enough compared to the population of the demon race. It was not a drop in the bucket, but a drop in the bucket. The reason was still what Yin Yang had said just now. The demon race's reproductive ability was too terrifying. This was the strongest characteristic of the demon race, but it was also their fatal weakness. Take a couple from the rat race as an example. They could give birth once a month and each litter could have at least a dozen mice. It was common for the rat race to have more than a dozen mice. It was because the rat race's vitality and ability to adapt to the environment were unusually strong. Usually they would mature after 3 months and could find a partner to reproduce. To put it more intuitively, when a rat race couple gave birth to their 12th litter of mouse babies in a year, they would also welcome their 9th litter of great-grandchildren at the same time. In a year's time, the number of offspring produced by this rat race couple alone would exceed 10,000. Moreover, this was the most conservative and lowest number. In a month's time, the number would increase by almost 10 times, which would be 100,000. Although the rat race's vitality and ability to adapt to the environment were not the same as their cultivation talent, more than 95% of them were ordinary mice with a lifespan of 1 or 2 years at most, or they would die at birth. Based on the rat race's reproductive level, they would still produce many offspring with cultivation talent. As long as they were mice with cultivation talent, their lifespan would definitely not be an ordinary 2 or 3 years. It was unpredictable. How many offspring of the rat race would be born if they continued to reproduce like this? The number would be so huge that it was impossible to calculate. It was terrifying to imagine. It was not that the demon emperor did not see the crisis of survival resources and gave the order to control the population of the demon race, starting from the start of reproduction. However, many of the demon race's lifespan was very short. Often, when the order was given, they would not even be born. In this process, without waiting for the notice, they would have already completed the reproduction task that far exceeded the expected number. Then, when they finally received the notice, they would already be old or dying. There were even many who did not receive the notice even until their deaths. After so many plans, the results were minimal. The upper echelons of the demon race also accepted their fate. It was impossible to control the reproduction. Furthermore, even if you could control mice, bears, and wolves, how could you control the microscopic demon race like mosquitoes and ants? Also, how could you control the fish race? In the end, they were simply left to their own devices. Apart from those who were especially talented, some arrangements would be made. The rest would be left to their own devices. It was precisely because of this specific living environment that the demon race had never believed in justice since ancient times. Instead, they believed in the survival of the fittest. The most extreme and direct way was to eliminate the weak and keep the strong. There was a saying in the world that snakes eat mice for half a year, and mice eat snakes for half a year. The general idea was that snakes and mice were natural enemies. Within a year, snakes that were not in hibernation would eat mice on sight. In contrast, mice were the biggest enemies of dormant snakes. Countless hibernating snakes were eaten by mice. This situation also existed in the demon realm, and was even more severe. As cultivators, the snake demon and rat demon were natural opposites. The conflict between them was even more prominent. Almost every time they met, they would fight. However, the stronger one would live and the weaker one would die. And such an example did not only apply to species that were mutually exclusive. For example, if the chicken race was strong, then they could eat the phoenix. There was no such thing as racial suppression. Eat whatever you want as long as you can eat it. By right, the annual yield of the fruit of lifeline would be hundreds of billions of kilograms. If it were in the bound of universe, they would still be rich if they ate as much as they wanted. However, for the demon race it was far from enough. Even with the addition of other crops, it was still far from enough. Therefore, every year, there would be more than billions of demon race members killed each other, becoming food for their opponents. But there were even more who did not have the talent to cultivate. They were destined to die silently the moment they were born. This was the cruel reality of the demon race. It was bloody but helpless. Sky Crown City is the territory of the Crane Demon King. It is one of the more orderly cities in the Plains of Demons. White Bear explained about Sky Crown City. In the Plains of Demons, there are not more than 100 such large and orderly cities. For other cities, Entering the city is equivalent to entering a bandit's lair or a fighting ring. If not for their strength, they would never enter. In a city like that, if you want to do business without a certain level of cultivation base, you won't be able to find anything in more than an hour. Not even your skin and bones will be left. White Bear Bai's face was pale. Master, your cultivation base is profound and has reached the pinnacle of the royal saint. But from what you said earlier, you must have climbed up step by step. You should know that when cultivators of our generation go out to gather resources, it's already a narrow escape. When we come back to trade for resources, it's another narrow escape. Master, from the moment we're born, before we open our eyes, until the moment we close our eyes, we're always fighting. The other bears were weeping as well. Other than not fighting in the womb, we have to face death at other times. White Bear Bai grinned. I heard that I had a few brothers who were crushed to death by my father when he turned over in his sleep when they were just born. Yunyang was speechless. I didn't expect the world to be so chaotic after years of closed-door cultivation. It's sad for the demon race, sad for the demon race. Yunyang sighed. Isn't that right? White Bear Bai was full of resentment as well. Yunyang's indirect questioning confirmed another important fact. As the demon race was poor, they could only make some iron sheets and stamp them with a unique seal. These were the so-called sacred coins. They were not like the bound of universe, where spiritual jade was used as a currency of equivalent value. It was more practical and could be spent while absorbing energy for cultivation. To the demon race here, this was a fantasy. Why did they have to be so extravagant? Was there really such a thing? Many demons with low cultivation base would not believe it even if they said it out loud. Boasting. Even we demon emperors don't have such a rich family background. This situation had led to another matter. Once the bound of universe's spiritual jade was brought to the demon race, it would be considered a valuable item. An unparalleled treasure. Just now, White Bear San had said that he would use the spiritual jade to give to his fiancée as a token of love, an engagement gift. It was true indeed. Although it was only a piece of mid-class spiritual jade, it was more than enough. His father-in-law would feel very proud, especially since his daughter would have someone to rely on for life. His son-in-law was the best. His daughter would never make a mistake in this lifetime. However, after listening to the introduction, Yunyang could not help feeling a little overwhelmed. Was this really the case? Could this be the main reason why the demon race wanted to rush to the bound of universe so desperately? F***ck, if it were me, I'd rather go to the bound of universe to be someone's pet, than stay here. I have quite a lot of the spiritual jade from the human realm that you all view as treasures. Is this thing very rare? Yunyang mused. White Bear Bai's eyes widened. Master, you have the unparalleled treasure from the bound of universe? Unparalleled treasure. Yunyang was speechless. Putting aside the supreme-class spiritual jade, Yunyang's spatial ring contained countless upper-class spiritual jade and mid-class spiritual jade. After all, when the black and white ruthless duo traded with the Commerce League, what they gained the most was the spiritual jade. On the contrary, there was not even a piece of lower-class spiritual jade. After all, the price-performance ratio was too low. Back then, I had accepted a secret mission to infiltrate the human race. Yunyang looked as if he could not bear to recall the past as he said slowly, when the mission was completed and I returned to the demon realm, I was discovered by the human experts guarding the sacred mountain. After a great battle, not only was I severely injured, my cultivation base had also fallen by half. I was unable to recover from the setback, so I became disheartened and decided to live in seclusion. Although Yunyang's words were lamenting the past to White Bear Bai and the rest of the demon race, it was no different from a bolt from the blue. It was too amazing. My master was so amazing back then. Not only had he gone to the human realm and caused trouble, but his cultivation base had also fallen and he still had an unreachable profound cultivation base. What kind of almighty being must master have been in the past? The fox demon that Yunyang had transformed into looked up at the sky and did not speak for a long while. Suddenly he sighed softly, I'm old. I wonder when I can recover to 9 tails. After saying that, 8 large furry tails unexpectedly appeared behind his buttocks. They gently swayed, and then seemed to have suddenly discovered something. He frowned and with a swoosh the 8 furry tails retracted. Only one was left, squatting on the ground and continuing to sigh. However, White Bear Bai and the other bears' eyes widened at once, feeling their hearts thumping wildly. 8 tails. That was obviously 8 tails, 8 clear tails. Did this mean that their master was a master of the Fox clan? Listening to their master, it seemed like he had fallen from 9 tails? Oh my god, The bears' mouths were parched and they were speechless for a moment. Don't tell others about my background so easily. Yun Yang's weathered voice rang again. My enemies in the demon plane, not to say that they are scattered all over the place. Almost scattered all over the place, enemies. White Bear shuddered at the sound of it. Oh my God. You must have made enemies when you were 9 tails, right? Then your enemies, what kind of people are they? My enemies, any one of them, can annihilate your entire clan. It's not a joke to turn them into ashes with a flick of a finger, it really only takes a flick of a finger. Yin Yang glanced at White Bear Bai and smiled amiably. The bears broke out in a cold sweat. That scared them to death. So my previous identity is no longer needed. Yun Yang sighed. As long as I entered the city with my past identity, I'm afraid that Sky Crown City will be reduced to, understood. White Bear Bai became smart at once. Master, your enemies must be influential figures, right? Yun Yang's weathered gaze said, I'm ashamed to say this. One of them is the current king of the Fox clan. The few bears began to tremble like a pendulum. Master, you're ruthless. You're really ruthless. What identity should I use? Yun Yang looked at White Bear Bai and the other bears with a frown. Even if this white bear leader could not react in time, there were still other bears. 2 heads were better than 1, they could not all be idiots. The bears were deep in thought, none of them speaking for a long time. Yun Yang secretly rolled his eyes. F***ck me, I shouldn't have counted on these bears to come up with a solution. Rather than counting on them, I might as well just flash my human identity and charge in. Forget it, I'll just go straight to the mission. The few of you think of a way to get me a similar identity. Yun Yang said matter-of-factly, if I were to go in with an unregistered identity with my cultivation base, it would be troublesome no matter where I go. With a mission, the only thing to think of was how to complete it. This was much simpler and more direct. White Bear Bai jumped up excitedly, thumping his chest loudly. Don't worry, Master, leave it all to this disciple. Chapter 1246. Applying for leave for 2 days. Applying for leave for I am supreme. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1247. That afternoon, White Bear San finally came back with a convoy of carriages. It couldn't be helped. Yun Yang had brought out quite a lot of things and it was impossible to fit all of them. That night, Yun Yang's identity as a demon was revealed. It was a white stone plate. When spiritual chi was injected into it, a purple furry fox head would appear, with an introduction next to it. Violet of the Fox clan. In order to get this plate, White Bear San had spent 10,000 Saint Origin coins for nothing. Well, the name Violet was given by White Bear San. Master, this name is good, isn't it? It's far better than the vulgarity of my generation. White Bear San looked very pleased with himself. Yun Yang sighed from the bottom of his heart. Damn it, what else does your family know besides color? Forget it, Violet is Violet. It's just a name, I'll endure it. That night, the long line of carriages finally entered Qingguan City. Yun Yang finally saw the so-called peace of this city. After entering, before they could find a place to stay, they encountered 4 or 5 waves of robbers. What a peace! The dozens of human-shaped cranes at the city gate, as well as the strong men with large wings drooping on both sides of their bodies, turned a blind eye to the robberies and fights close at hand, because their job was only to check the identity of the passers-by and collect fees. No matter if foreign demons entered or left the city, they all had to pay 1 Saint Origin coin at a time, without exception. The demons in the city or within the territory of the Crane clan did not have to pay to enter or leave. As for those without an identity, they had to pay 100 Saint Origin coins at a time, and an additional 5,000 Saint Origin coins to apply for an identity certificate. This is a good business, it's very promising. Yun Yang was deeply impressed, even amazed. It had to be said that the demon race had a strong reproductive ability, and those without an identity could be found everywhere. This kind of fee was simply unreasonable. If this were to happen in the human clan, there would definitely be great chaos. However, this scene was carried out in the demon clan. It was natural and logical. All the demons actually felt that it was only natural. However, what Yun Yang did not understand was that there was an unusually large crane perched on the battlement of the city gate. It was covered in snow-white feathers and its eyes were bloodshot, standing out from the rest. It should be the commander of this area, ready to take down and punish the disobedient demons at any time. Its cultivation base was already at the level of a royal saint, and it was rather impressive. With this person in charge, it would be difficult for the ordinary demons to cause any trouble. If they did, they would be courting death. In spite of this, Yun-Yang quickly came to a conclusion about this fellow. This fellow was very lazy, removing his lazy gaze that looked like he was about to fall asleep. It seemed that as long as the city gate was fine, everything would be fine for him and he would not care about anything. When it was Yun-Yang's turn to enter the gate, he was the first to prove this point. The gate guard glanced up and White Bear by stuffed a handful of St. Origin coins into his hands, nodding and bowing with a fawning smile. It's this old fox. Obviously this was the fellow that White Bear by had looked for last night. He turned his long neck and said, "Let's go in." Just as Yun-Yang and the rest entered the city gate, a few shadows suddenly flashed in the shadows by the roadside. A few skunk-like fellows rushed to the grain carts as if they had gone mad, and each of them picked up a lifeline fruit and was about to rush out. Faced with this scene, whether it was the gate guard or his subordinates, none of them moved as if they did not see anything, as if they were used to it. On the contrary, White Bear Bai and the other bears reacted quickly. White Bear Bai called out and the 7 bear brothers attacked together. The skunks spat out blood and fell to the side of the road, motionless. It was obvious that they would not be able to survive. They were actually killing without any mercy. Just as they pressed on, another wave of skunks came from the other side, one after the other, without the slightest hesitation because of the dead demons in front of them. White Bear Bai and the rest handled the situation with ease. Another wave of skunks was dealt with, and only then did the carriages enter the city temporarily safe. However, after walking for less than 1,000 feet, another group of demons rushed over. All of them were emaciated and their eyes were green. It was obvious that they were starving. When they saw the fruit of life, they didn't even care about their lives. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, White Bear Bai and the rest hollered as they exerted their full strength, glaring menacingly. Finally, another wave of skunks retreated, but not long after, another wave of skunks came and the fight began again. Looking at the demons who charged forward without any regard for their own lives, Yun-Yang was exasperated. "Is this the peaceful place you were talking about?" White Bear Bai fought back bravely. His thick and strong arms swung the thick and strong pole. "Master, this situation is already considered very good. It's very peaceful." Yun-Yang was speechless for a moment, not knowing what to say. "Do you have some misunderstanding about the word, peace? We've fought 7 to 8 times in less than 3 steps, and we've taken at least 100 lives. How can you say that it's peaceful and very good?" This old man is really speechless. The carriages turned and entered a wide avenue, but it was filled with people. People? Yun-Yang's gaze was fixed on them as he took a closer look. It was only then that he could see that these people, who were dressed in robes, were actually demons in disguise. From here on there was no more fighting. There was even the melodious sound of silk pipes coming from the front, and the aroma of various foods wafted into his nostrils. There were stalls by the roadside, some selling clothes, some selling food, and there were restaurants, goose houses. There seemed to be brothels, all of them clean and tidy. The scene reflected in his eyes was like a different world from what was happening hundreds of feet away, as if it was a lifetime ago. "Master, as long as we're here we'll be safe. The path we just took is probably the slums. It's inevitable that we'll be robbed by demons." White Bear Bai heaved a sigh of relief. "This is the inner city. Here, even if you rob a copper coin you'll be beheaded. Only places with such an inner city can be considered a place of order. So, this is really a holy land of peace." White Bear Bai looked at the scene in front of him and said with satisfaction and comfort, "Let's find a place to stay first and let Master rest. Let's go and hand in the mission." Yun-Yang checked into the guest house successfully. He closed his eyes to rest in his room, but in fact he was planning the next step of the plan. The Crane clan was also a demon race that was gifted in flying, and the demon that entered the bound of universe to kidnap human youths first had to have the talent to fly. If so, whether or not the Crane clan was involved in this operation, they should have some understanding of it. The problem now was, how should he carry out the follow-up? Chapter 1248. After about an hour, White Bear, White, and the others slowly came back, each of them beaming with joy. Before Yun-Yang could ask, White Bear Bai took the initiative to explain that not only had he successfully received his reward, he had also given him an extra 2,000 Saint coins. They had earned a total of 3,000 yuan coins from this trip, a huge profit indeed. This must be related to that ring. "I just don't know what's inside that ring," Zhang Heng muttered to himself. "Just a spatial ring and they've given us so much more reward. Why didn't they come a few more times for this kind of work? Every day, the more the better." How regretful. Why didn't I open it secretly to broaden my horizons? Yun Yang was in the room, his expression filled with utter disdain. Of course, White Bear Bai and the rest did not know what was in the storage ring, but how could it escape the sharp eyes of the great sect leader Yun? He had seen it long ago. If it was really something good, how could the 9-feet-high sect leader Yun let it go? He would have taken it away long ago. Why would he leave it for the receiving demons to receive? There was only a sword in the ancient ring. The quality of the sword was only equivalent to the Bound of Universe's upper-class standard. How could it possibly catch Yin Yang's attention? There were also some so-called treasures of heaven and earth, but they were all useful to the demon race, but they were not top-notch goods. Not wanting to alert the enemy, Yun Yang let them go with the mentality that the loss outweighed the gain. Of course, the main reason was that the goods were too ordinary, they could not pique a certain someone's interest anymore. After that, Yun Yang casually gave a few pointers to the bear's cultivation base. With just a few words, the bear's cultivation base actually showed signs of a breakthrough. White Bear Bai and the rest felt as if they had seen a celestial being. Master was amazing indeed. He was indeed a top-notch expert of the older generation. The so-called profound words of wisdom and enlightenment were probably nothing more than this, right? While the demon bears rejoiced, they were even more thankful for their good luck. They had inexplicably stumbled into the gates of hell, but they had managed to walk out of the path of survival. Not only did they walk out of the path of survival, they had even found a master like this. Their luck was unparalleled. The next morning, White Bear, White and the others rented a stall next to the inn, placed the goods they had harvested during this period of time on it, and began to peddle. Anything that was slightly more valuable could be sent to the auction house, but the things that White Bear White and the others were selling were not qualified to be auctioned. In other words, although these things were exchanged after risking their lives, compared to real treasures, they were not worth much at all. They were not worth much at all. With a thought, Yun Yang took out 2 jars of amethyst honey and filled them into 100 small bottles for White Bear Bai to sell. You can only take out 10 bottles at a time. You would take it out every hour. The bowl you drank earlier was diluted. This one is undiluted. Also, this master's amethyst honey is extraordinary. It's the honey of the queen bee. How can ordinary amethyst honey compare to it? This was indeed the honey of the queen bee. Although amethyst honey was a premium item that was priceless in the outside world, it was already common to Yun Yang. Yun Yang, who had Emmy's support, naturally made a fuss about the quality of the honey. Actually, the honey of the queen bee was just an ordinary item that Yun Yang had casually given away. Above it was the amethyst queen bee's honey of a higher grade. That was the dream of amethyst honey, an unparalleled treasure. What? Amethyst queen bee's honey? Isn't that a premium item that is many times more precious than ordinary amethyst honey? Master, you can totally send this to the auction house. Letting us sell it like this is simply a reckless waste of a treasure. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Sending it to the auction house will only invite unnecessary trouble. How much is the price of your honey then? 20,000 Saint coins per bottle. Or you can exchange it with treasures of equivalent value. Remember, only items of equivalent value can be exchanged. If the other party is a wise person, they will naturally give you something of equivalent value. Yun Yang quickly decided on the price. 20,000 for a small bottle of undiluted amethyst queen bee's honey could not be considered cheap. It should be said that it was free. If it was sent to the auction house, the starting bid alone would be at least 100,000 per bottle. However, Yun Yang's goal was not money. What he needed was to stir up a storm and use this premium amethyst queen bee's honey to test the waters. As expected, once the amethyst queen bee's honey was displayed, it immediately attracted a crowd of onlookers. It was even bought by a buyer who had some savings and a keen eye. After confirming it, the news spread like wildfire. Countless demons in the city gathered in this direction. This was especially so for the banshees, whose eyes were shining brightly without looking away. Other than the effect of nourishing a cultivator's meridians and bones, the amethyst honey also had another legendary miraculous effect. If consumed regularly, it could maintain one's youth forever. Eternal youth was an irresistible temptation to women, demonesses, and all female life forms in the world. 10 bottles of amethyst queen bee's honey were sold out very quickly, and they had only been sold to 3 stores. The first to get it was naturally the buyer who had a keen eye. However, she only had a keen eye and limited financial resources. She had only bought 2 bottles before she had nothing left. However, it was already a great opportunity to get her hands on a bottle of amethyst queen bee's honey. As the news spread, A beautiful Crane tribe woman who had heard the news wanted to buy it all in one go. However, another woman came after her. Both parties fought with all their might, so she had no choice but to give up half of the honey. However, the two banshees did not leave after they had bought it. Instead, they stood at the side and watched. It was obvious that they had not had enough. They wanted to see if White Bear Bai and the other demons had any left. If there was, they would buy more. For this thing they would not hesitate to go bankrupt. The eyes of the two banshees flickered with a frightening fire. An hour later, more than 20 banshees had rushed over after hearing the news. Every one of them was staring at White Bear Bai with fire in their eyes. If not for the fact that there was a rule that forbade robbery, White Bear Bai and his brothers would have long been smashed to pieces, dying in the hands of these crazy banshees. When White Bear Bai took out another 10 bottles of amethyst queen bee's honey, the banshees that were about to go crazy immediately went crazy. They even said, 20,000 per bottle of amethyst queen bee's honey is obviously a free gift. This is absolutely not allowed. How can such a fantastic item be sold at such a low price? This kind of good stuff, even if it is not auctioned, it should be at least 100,000 per bottle. Yes, you did not hear wrongly. The seller had taken the initiative to raise the price. Furthermore, none of the sellers had objected to it. Instead, they had collectively agreed to it. It was truly an eye-opening spectacle. This situation continued all the way until the fourth batch. Not only did the number of banshees not decrease, it had instead increased by several times. Those that had been bought previously had not left, and there were even more new arrivals. No one would complain about having too much of such a fantastic item. At this time, a group of people slowly approached from afar. The city lord's wife is here. Chapter 1249. Someone seemed to have called out, but the banshees did not seem to hear it, continuing to snatch the bottle in a frenzy. Mine, I was here first. I've already paid for it. Who didn't pay? This bottle is mine. Under the powerful temptation of eternal youth, even if the demon emperor and empress were here, these crazy banshees would turn a deaf ear to them, much less a mere castellan's wife. Seeing that they were being ignored, the castellan's wife panicked as well. Her group of demons were not young or old. Including her mistress and second mistress, there were 30 to 40 concubines. They were already short on resources. They had wanted to take advantage of their status, but the current situation was doomed to fail. The castellan's wife and her group of demons were afraid that they would not be able to get their hands on the bottle, so they charged forward with a loud bang. However, whether it was a coincidence or not, the last bottle had been snatched away by the banshees. At least for now, the castellan's wife and her group of demons were destined to return in disappointment. Facing the fiery gazes of the castellan's wives, White Bear Bai stammered, "Gone? Gone? Really? Gone?" He was not stuttering, he was terrified. Anyone would shudder under the gazes of these women who looked like they wanted to pull out their tendons and skin them alive. How could White Bear Bai be an exception? Gone? You've always had some. Why are you gone now that we're here? Are you looking down on me? The castellan's wife's gaze was as sharp as a knife, her words piercing through his heart. That kind of extreme disappointment after the extreme surprise almost drove her crazy. Thanks to the crane's slender neck, she was already flushed red. One of her hands touched the hilt of the sword at her waist, seemingly unintentionally. "If there's really nothing left, I'll chop you up." White Bear Bai's face was as white as a sheet. At this moment, his face was the same color as his fur. This time it's really, really gone. White Bear Bai did not want to die. In his panic he blurted out, "This was originally my master's. It's not mine. He only gave me this much. Where's your master?" "My master is..." A moment later. Yun Yang's room was filled with demons all over the place. Banshees. Yun Yang was not offended and remained calm. The Fox clan elder's face that he had morphed into was filled with an amiable smile. "Mistress, please do not be impatient." The city lord's wife said angrily, "Your disciple said that the amethyst queen bee honey is gone. How can I stay calm? Since I've come to Sky Crown City, why would I do such a stupid thing to offend the city lord's wife?" Yun Yang smiled faintly. "Those from before. Although it is the genuine amethyst queen bee honey, the quantity is limited, and it is only enough to satisfy our daily needs. As for Madam's portion, I have already prepared it. It will definitely satisfy Madam." The city lord's wife's eyes lit up. Yun Yang chuckled and said, "Come to think of it, this old man was the one who planned this first. I have something to ask of you, but my demon knows my own situation and I really can't meet you. Unable to come up with a solution, I'm left with no choice but to resort to this. The city lord's wife was also an expert of the Crane clan. A glint flashed across her eyes when she heard Yun Yang's words. She said, "This? Brother Z of the Fox clan, please speak your mind," a concubine beside her asked. "May I ask Brother Z, how much amethyst queen bee honey do you have left?" Once the question was asked, all the women in the residence of the city lord's breathing quickened. No one was an exception. If it was only given to the mistress and not to us, it would be a great loss. The mistress would then enjoy all the glory and favor, and there would be no more for us. How could Yun Yang not understand this? He said leisurely, "Of course I still have." Before his voice trailed off, with a wave of his hand, rows of small jade bottles appeared on the table. Yun Yang continued, "I still have 500 bottles here. I believe it should be enough for all of you ladies." However, no one bothered with him now. All the ladies, including the city lord's wife, stared straight at the neat rows of small bottles on the table. Their eyes glowed brightly like arrows and swords, unblinkingly. A thin Crane clan expert stepped forward and opened a few bottles to check. He nodded slightly and said, "That's right, they're really the highest grade of amethyst honey. It's not an exaggeration to call them queen bee honey." Amethyst honey was already a rare item that had a price but no supply. The amethyst queen bee honey that Yun Yang had taken out this time was a high-grade item that had never been seen before. However, be it the smell or the feel, it was a few times better than ordinary amethyst honey. It was obvious that it was not fake at all. After receiving the confirmation, the demonesses became even more frenzied. Oh my god. Legend had it that amethyst honey could already preserve one's youth. Then would the amethyst queen bee honey, which was even more exquisite, be even better? Such an exquisite item must not be missed. Once it was missed, one would regret it for the rest of their lives. Only the city lord's wife was still trying her best to maintain her elegance and calmness. However, her hands that had already turned white from clenching her fists and her face that was flushed with excitement had already betrayed her. She tried her best to be reserved as she said, "I wonder, what request does sir have? You can tell me." The meaning was clear. "With this amethyst queen bee honey, I will do anything for you." Yun Yang smiled. "It's not a big deal. Firstly, this old man is getting on in years and feels that there's no hope for a breakthrough. I want to obtain a longevity pill," the city lord's wife interrupted. "That's not a problem. A trivial longevity extending pill was worth at most 100,000 Saint Origin coins. It might be difficult for others to obtain one, but for someone with the status of the city lord's wife, a single word from her was not even worth mentioning. Cough cough, it's second, but it's also the thing that worries me the most for the rest of my life. I would like to request an audience with the city lord. I need your help with that matter. I don't know what you're looking for. Why don't you tell me? Or perhaps there's no need to trouble the city lord." Yun Yang wore a troubled expression as he turned to look at the crowd. The city lord's wife understood. "You may leave." The demons retreated from the room. "It's really, this old man's cultivation has regressed instead of improving because of my chronic illness all these years. Although I've tried everything I can think of, the results are minimal. The amethyst honey that I obtained by a narrow escape from death was also my cure, but it's a pity that this divine item is still useless. However, a few years ago I came across a secret manual by chance. There's a method in it that can solve my chronic illness. To use some human cultivators as cultivation vessels and extract their bloodline and cultivation essence. In short, it's to use the Bound of Universe's cultivation method as a reference to break through the inherent bottleneck, allowing one's body to be reborn and climb to new heights. However, this old man is getting on in years now. I can't go to the Bound of Universe to plunder people. Remember the mobile version of the website, M. Chapter 360, A Favor, page 1/1, bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1250. Yun Yang's voice was full of emotion. "I've thought about it, and to complete this arcane skill, I can only rely on external forces to enter the Bound of Universe. The risk is immense, and it's impossible if there's no great reward. Fortunately, the amethyst queen bee honey in my hands is still useful. It's not in vain that I risked my life to charge into the Amethyst Valley alone, to steal the amethyst honey. I've also heard that Lord Crane King is upright and courageous, and that you're righteous and righteous." He found it difficult to speak. "Madam, this matter?" The castellan's wife frowned. This matter was indeed of great importance and the risk was immense. She was not sure if she could make the decision. "Sir's request is not unreasonable. The amethyst honey is already a priceless item, and the amethyst queen bee honey is even more valuable. The human race is our race's nemesis, so we can deal with it however we want. The only thing to consider is the origin of the human cultivators. Even I don't know if Sir has any human martial artists with you, nor do I know if he's willing to help you." Yun Yang sighed and said, "This is this old man's only chance to live?" Yun Yang's words were faint, but the meaning behind them was clear to everyone. It was not a big deal unless he died. He was able to obtain the amethyst queen bee honey that others could not because he had a request. If he was not given a chance to live, why would he give the honey to him? Whether it was using force, emotion, or reason, it was useless in front of someone who did not have much time left in his life. The castellan's wife turned to look at the rows of sparkling amethyst honey. She bit her lip and said, "Sir, I can promise to give Sir a longevity pill. I hope you can buy Sir's amethyst honey at 20,000 per bottle? No, 50,000 per bottle. How about that?" Yun Yang said with a frown, "Nothing much. The amethyst queen bee honey I have with me is all that's left of me. I don't plan to sell it anymore. This is related to my survival. How can I sell it just like that?" "But you had so much before, didn't you sell them all? Sir, are you looking down on me by favoring one and discriminating against the other?" "It's precisely because the Grand Madam has taken notice of me, that's why I resorted to such underhanded tricks. The Madam is not an ordinary demon and it's not easy to see her. If I want to see the Madam, I naturally have to resort to extreme measures. If the Madam doesn't come, I will continue to sell." Yun Yang sighed, "Now that I've seen Madam, I won't even sell a single bottle." The mayor's wife's almond-shaped eyes widened. "Actually, the amethyst honey's claim of eternal youth is just a legend. It might not have such an effect." Yun Yang replied calmly, "Perhaps it's just a big lie that's been passed down. Why don't you wait for a few days, my lady? Let's see if there are any practical effects on the demonesses who have consumed the amethyst queen bee's honey. It's not too late then. I won't sell any of these bottles anymore. I'll keep them for you, madam. Is that okay?" Yun Yang smiled and kept all the amethyst honey with a wave of his hand. In an instant, the table was completely clean. There was not a single bottle left. "How dare you!" The city lord's wife flew into a rage. Her face was filled with anger, and her killing intent was revealed. "This old man doesn't have long to live. I've become indifferent to the suppression of martial arts in this world." Yun Yang said indifferently, "Madam, please calm down. If Madam is really troubled, this old man probably won't have the next chance to act presumptuously. Since there are no demons to help me, why should I help them? Forgive me, forgive me." The city lord's wife was trembling with anger, but she could not do anything to the other party at the moment. The other party had already made his stance clear. "I guess I won't be able to live much longer. If you're not willing to help, then you really won't be able to live much longer. The rest is up to you. Let's go." The city lord's wife's eyes glinted fiercely as she left with a flick of her sleeves. Then sighs and curses could be heard coming from outside. "What is this? Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit." Yun Yang watched the city lord's wife leave, his eyes flickering. It looked like this deal was probably off. Would the other party snatch it from him? "Master this, don't panic. I have my own plans. Tonight, no matter what happens, don't show yourselves. All of you sleep well. If you make any rash moves, you'll die in vain." Yes, this disciple understands. Before nightfall, spread the news that the city lord's wife left in a rage because she didn't manage to buy the amethyst honey. Try to spread it to all the demons. Yes, this disciple understands. I'll go now. White Bear and the other bears were not really fools. How could they not see the situation clearly? The amethyst queen bee honey in their master's hands was something the city lord's wife had to obtain, but the city lord's wife could not give the conditions their master had requested. There would definitely be some twists and turns in the future. Their master's cultivation base was profound and he did not have much time left to live, so there was no need for him to be cautious. His actions were aimed at saving his brothers' lives. The more demons knew about this, the safer they and the other bears would be. Yun Yang, on the other hand, cursed inwardly, "What's wrong with these bears' brains? They think too much. Humans and demons walk different paths, it's a matter of perspective. Although this young master has taken you in because of the circumstances, it's only for expediency. I've never truly treated you as my disciples. Who would consider so much for you?" That night, wave after wave of night walkers arrived as scheduled, appearing in the inn one after another. Wave after wave of tyrannical divine senses surged back and forth in the inn. A high-level fox cultivator around the 4th grade of Saint Emperor. This was the target. He looks like an old man with a slightly hunched back. Appearance? The amethyst queen bee honey on the target's body is extremely important. It must not be destroyed. Not even a bottle is allowed. Countless great demons flew around and almost dug up the entire inn. They even checked the bottom of every bed carefully, but they didn't find anything. As for the amethyst queen bee honey, the absolute target, it was nowhere to be found. Only the snores of the bears in White Bear's room were earth-shattering, and the entire inn was shaking along with their snores. Where did it go? Where's the fox tribe? What's going on? Come, let me tell you. On a certain rooftop, a group of Saint Emperor and Saint Venerable demons were in a state of confusion in the night. They had actually mobilized such a large force just to steal a few bottles of honey. At the same time, a massive manhunt was launched in the city. Their targets were the demonesses who had already bought the amethyst honey. It was a pity that White Bear had spread the news well. All the demonesses had received the news and understood that they had bought the honey, but the mayor's wife had not. Their superior was angry, so naturally they were all on tenterhooks, living in fear. Some drank it in one gulp and then found a place to hide. Some even disappeared without a trace. No one knew where they went. There were also some who were more powerful. They had a Saint Venerable level demon lover by their side, so they were not afraid of a direct confrontation. Chapter 1251. As such, the city lord's wife busied herself for an entire night, but did not even manage to obtain a single bottle of purple crystal honey. She smashed the flower vase in the city lord's manor, furious. Search. Even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground, we must find that old fox for me. They searched for 3 days straight. But this Fox Clan expert seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Not even a trace of him could be found. This was strange. He was furious. Everyone else could maintain their looks forever, but we are the oldest in this city, yet we can't? In the end, the city lord could not stand his wife's crying and throwing a tantrum. He personally moved out and sealed off the entire area under his control, but it was to no avail. The only piece of good news that could be confirmed was that this Fox Clan expert had not left the city. He was still in the city. The reason why he came to this conclusion was that every morning or noon, he could still be seen roaming around the city, eating or taking a stroll. But as soon as the demon clan experts who were searching for him rushed over, he would disappear again without a trace. Violet. The city lord was confused. When did a high-level expert called Violet appear in the Fox Clan? Why haven't I heard of him before? If he really is only a 4th grade Saint Emperor, how could he have such a high level of concealment ability? This was obviously impossible. Then the other party's true strength must be considerable. And this also seemed to prove what he had said earlier. Because of the incident in the past, he had been heavily injured, his strength had been greatly reduced, and he did not have much lifespan left. But this kind of person was the hardest to deal with. On the 4th day, White Bear and the other 6 brothers were captured and brought into the city lord's manor. There was only a note left in the inn: if you don't appear, I will kill your 7 disciples. That night, following a series of shattering sounds, the city lord's manor's entrance was suddenly filled with a fragrance. 7 bottles of purple crystal queen bee honey had been smashed at the entrance. The rich and elegant fragrance filled the air for tens of miles. Almost half the city was filled with this intoxicating fragrance. Apparently, Lord Violet wouldn't be threatened in the slightest. You've captured 7 of my disciples to threaten me? I'll vent my anger by smashing my honey. Let's see who feels the pinch. If you catch 7, I'll smash 7 bottles. The city lord's wife's face was pale with heartache, but she still held on and did not give in. Until the next night. Although the city lord's mansion was heavily guarded, in a corner outside the walls of the city lord's mansion, there was still a series of sounds that sounded like hailstones falling. The banging sounds were incessant. The same sweet and fragrant scent once again permeated the entire city. This time, a total of 14 bottles of purple crystal honey were smashed here. Naturally, the effects were many times stronger than before. On the 3rd day there was almost no movement for the entire night. Just when the city lord's mansion was about to heave a sigh of relief, at the moment when dawn was about to break, the familiar banging sounds rang out one after another. This time it was even more outrageous. He smashed 21 bottles in one go. The city lord's wife's entire body began to tremble. Half of it was because she was so angry that smoke was coming out of her 7 orifices. The other half was because her heart ached, and the pain was so painful that it pierced through her heart. The meaning of this Fox clan member named Violet was very clear. You've caught 7 of my disciples. You want to force me to give in? That's impossible. For every day that you don't release the demon, I'll smash 7 bottles. 2 days, 14 bottles, 3 days, 21 bottles, and so on. As long as you don't release them, I'll keep smashing them. I don't believe that he'll be willing to smash them all. That's his life-saving straw. I won't release them. On the 4th day, the sound of 28 bottles of purple crystal honey smashing could be heard. On the 5th day, 35 bottles were smashed. On the 6th day, 42 bottles. On the 7th day, there were indeed no 49 bottles smashed. Instead, they rounded it up and smashed 50 bottles consecutively. In this way, they had already smashed 197 bottles of purple crystal queen bee honey. The city lord's wife could no longer sit still. It seemed like there were only 500 bottles that day. If they continued like this, wouldn't more than half of their stock be smashed by tomorrow? The day after tomorrow, the day after that, at most 3 to 5 days later, not a single bottle would be left. What I want is the purple crystal queen bee honey, not a lose-lose situation. Can't other people get their hands on purple crystal honey? The city lord's wife flew into a rage at the other extreme. The experts in the residence all smiled bitterly. Purple crystal honey was a top-grade item that had a price but no supply. It had already meant that it was not easy to obtain. If it was so easy to obtain, wouldn't it have been worthless a long time ago? Because of the environment in which the purple crystal bees lived, they were far more ferocious than other bee species. Every purple crystal bee was an existence that was almost indestructible. To be able to form a large swarm of purple crystal bees, at least hundreds of thousands of purple crystal bees had to be gathered together. Furthermore, the purple crystal queen bee honey that was a grade higher than ordinary purple crystal honey. Its value was at least 10 times that of ordinary purple crystal honey. The stinger of the purple crystal bees was incomparably sharp. It could almost ignore all defenses and any protective demonic aura. As long as they got close, even a Saint Venerable expert would be injured with just one stinger. Even the white bear race, which was famous for their rough skin and thick flesh, would not be able to escape. And once you were injured, congratulations, you would also be surrounded by the strangest and most special purple crystal bee venom. Ordinary bee venom could be dissolved by the honey of this bee species, but the purple crystal bee venom was very special. Although it would not kill you, it would always haunt you. At the very least, it would require 100 years of cultivation to be able to completely dissolve the bee venom. Therefore, even if it was a high-level Saint Venerable, it would not be easy for them to escape from the place where the amethyst bees gathered. Occasionally obtaining a bit of honey was even greater luck. Then why was the market price of such a rare purple crystal honey limited to being priceless, but not very high? This stemmed from the effects of the honey. The so-called eternal youth was only a legend. The effects had not been shown in front of people. The other effects were to nourish the meridians and repair the yuan body. The effects were indeed very strong, but there were many people who had the same type of heavenly treasure. Furthermore, it was much easier to collect them than the purple crystal honey. It was precisely because of this that although the purple crystal honey was rare, it was only rare. The market price was not high. In reality, even now, no one could understand how a mere Saint Emperor Fox clan could obtain so much purple crystal honey. And it was not even ordinary purple crystal honey, but purple crystal queen bee honey. What should we do? The city lord's wife was like an ant on a hot pan. Do we really have to give in to this hateful fox? On the other side, the city lord twisted his long neck and sighed speechlessly. Just for a few bottles of honey with unknown effects, the rules that he had set up with his own hands had been completely destroyed. This woman really made people speechless. What exactly does he want? The city lord asked speechlessly. What he wants is... The city lord's wife looked at her husband timidly. Hearing this, the city lord could not help but let out a long sigh. This matter was really difficult to handle. Chapter 1252. However, when he saw so many women staring at him in his backyard, the city lord was filled with anger, but he had nowhere to vent it. During this period of time, he was not the only one suffering from his wife's pillow talk. The entire backyard had been turned upside down because of the purple crystal honey. All the wives, concubines, and even his beloved maids and goddaughters were all teary-eyed the moment they saw him. That purple crystal honey? Eternal youth? All of them stared at him, their eyes full of anticipation. The city lord felt as if he had committed a crime by not being able to get the honey. He kept lamenting about how he could not live on. I can't push him anymore. If I push him any further, he'll really fall to the ground. These were the words he heard the most these few days. You can't let Madame's temper do as she pleases. This is too important. Eternal youth, how could the city lord not have a headache? Eternal youth. Eternal youth. Could it be that all of you have been brainwashed by these 4 words? Agree to it. The city lord waved his sleeves angrily. Let those stupid bears out. Tell them that I personally spoke to Violet. Yes. Madame's eyes shone with a dazzling brilliance. She beamed with joy. My husband is the best. Really the best. The city lord covered his forehead and sighed. Damn it. If you don't agree that Violet and the 7 bears will be fine, but I will be driven crazy by you all, damn it. The moment the white bears walked out of the city lord's prison, they felt as if they had just woken up from a dream. They had thought that it was over for them this time. There was no possibility of them walking out of the city lord's prison alive. What kind of demon was the city lord of Tianguan City? Even if he was not a hero, he was still one of the few great demons in the demon world. He had a high status and his cultivation was unimaginably high. Going against him head-on was no different from courting death. 3 simple words, they were dead meat. Unexpectedly, the bears who had given up hope, not only did they not die after coming in, they did not even suffer much. They only stayed in the prison for a few days before being released. This was simply a dream. He wouldn't dare to do this even in his dreams. On the way back, the 7 bears felt like they were in a dream. They returned to the inn in a daze. They still felt weak all over, as if something was wrong. Inform Master. Master is not in the inn right now. That's right, where did Master go? After experiencing this unforeseen event, the mentality of all the bears changed once more. If it was said that they had suddenly encountered an expert before and didn't lack the thought of hugging his thigh, then right now this thigh was too thick and they couldn't hug it at all. They really didn't know if they should continue hugging it or let go. However, Yunyang had appeared less than 2 hours after they had returned. You've suffered. If you have any questions about martial arts, you can ask me. There might not be such an opportunity in the future. I have some insights, let me share them with you. White Bear, White 7 Bear was not bad. At least, during the few days that he was imprisoned, he did not say a word about his teacher. Yunyang felt that even if they were demons, their perseverance was worthy of his respect. Yunyang appeared in the city again that night. This time he was having a meal in a small inn. Perhaps it was coincidence, or misfortune. He bumped into someone from the residence of the Castellan. Violet of the Fox clan? Yes, this old man. You've actually shown yourself? This old man knows that he's not guilty. Why wouldn't I dare to show myself? Even if I have precious treasures, I have the ability to protect myself. Why wouldn't I dare to show myself? Lord Castellan wishes to see you. Lord Castellan wishes to summon me, of course I dare not disobey. However, I don't know what it is that this old man is aware of, so that we don't lose our manners when we meet. Lord Castellan wishes to talk to you face to face about your conditions the other day. Hearing this, the inn burst into an uproar. Of course, Yunyang was well aware of everything. The reason why he had to ask again in public was to confirm the matter further. This place was Crane King's hometown after all. Going back on his word in his own place, no matter how he made up for it, would still damage his family's reputation. Although the effect of this check and balance was subtle and might not be very effective, it was still good to have another hand. The residence of Castellan. In the parlor. There were only 2 people facing each other from a distance. Crane King Yunyang. The tall and lanky Crane King sat on the throne, looking down at the old fox of the Fox clan in front of him. His scarlet eyes flashed with the anger that had been suppressed for a long time. This meeting was obviously one of coercion and the other of being coerced. The Crane King, who was used to being in a superior position and looking down on his subordinates, had not tasted the feeling of being coerced in a long time. But now he had no choice but to do so. He was forced to submit. He had really been tricked by this old fox. As the king of a clan, how could he not be enraged when he was tricked by a lowly person? Are you that Violet or something? Crane King was a little emotional. Yes, this old man. Greetings, Your Highness Crane King. Long live Your Highness. Be it your cultivation base or intelligence, you're extraordinary. Why is it that this is the first time I've heard of your name? It's already a sin to insult the ears of a villager. If I were to investigate further, it'll only be an insult to the ancestors. Why bother asking? Violet, it's just a fake name, a smokescreen. Who are you? Crane King hollered. Yunyang remained calm. Whether it's a real name or a fake one, it's just a code name in the end. This old and useless one is here today to discuss business with your highness, Crane King. What does it have to do with a code name? Your highness's questioning is a little biased and neglecting the main point. Crane King leaned forward, a sharp aura pressing down on Yunyang. Oh. Yunyang took 2 steps back, a hint of paleness on his face. Your highness Crane King, are you going to use force? A cruel smile hung on the corners of Crane King's lips. How about it? Do you think I dare or can't do it? Yunyang took another 2 steps back and smiled faintly. This is not about your highness's courage. This old man has been fighting in his early years and is full of old wounds. My life is almost at its limit, and my time is only 3 to 5 years from now. I wonder if your highness Crane King can accept this. This old man has long accepted many things. Crane King narrowed his eyes. Oh. Your highness is furious at this old man's previous actions. How could this old man not know this? However, entering the residence of Crane King this time, I've already prepared for the worst. Either I die here, ending all my troubles, or I receive your highness Crane King's help to prolong my life. Whether it's the former or the latter, I'll have to leave it to fate, because this old man has done his best in demonic matters. If the Crane King has the intention to snatch it by force, the old fox, will definitely die here today. However, I will no longer be able to obtain your wife's amethyst queen bee honey. The old fox still has this bit of confidence. Yunyang narrowed his eyes as well, not giving in. I can also guarantee that within the next 2,000 years, there will never be amethyst honey of this quality in the entire demon plane. Crane King's gaze grew dangerous. Are you threatening me? Do you think threatening me is the same as threatening those demonesses? Do you think that this king also cares about the so-called eternal youth? Threaten? Since Crane King thinks this is a threat, then just treat it as me threatening your highness. This is my last hope. Whether your highness Crane King cares or not, or whether you interpret it in any other way, it's none of my business. Crane King snorted coldly, calculating in his heart. He did not speak for a long time, and neither did Yunyang. The situation seemed to have frozen. Whether you agree or not, it depends on your consideration. If you're willing to live in a restless house for the rest of your life and be constantly blamed, there's no harm in trying. I'm going to die anyway, why should I care about you? Chapter 1253. However, looking at His Highness Crane King, he really did not have the manly air of a man who could keep his word even in the backyard. Alright, your threat has succeeded, but I don't have the human cultivators that you want. You can give me a compromise. As long as it's not too much, I'll agree to it. As for the longevity pills, I can find a way to get you 5 of them. With your cultivation with 5 longevity pills, you should be able to extend your lifespan by another 30 years. Crane King said after some consideration. Yunyang nodded and stood up to salute with his hands cupped together. If so, I shall take my leave. He stood up to leave. Crane King was dumbfounded. F***ck, I've already lowered myself to this extent, but I didn't say anything definite. Do you have to be so straightforward? Behind the screen. A few female demons hidden behind the screen had their eyes wide and held their breaths, their eyes filled with reluctance and anxiety. Wait. Crane King spoke. Do you have any other instructions, Your Highness? I really don't have much time, I can't afford to waste it. Yunyang looked like he was saying, don't call me if you don't have any human cultivators. The Crane King took 2 deep breaths and finally said in a low voice, you want the human cultivators to practice the mystic arts. This is a very important matter. Although I have what you need here, it is not mine. I am just a guard and I am incapable of handling this matter. This matter is not as easy as you think. His voice was low. I'm telling you clearly, I can help you with what you want, but I'll have to take a huge risk. This risk is either offending the Crane King or the Demon Emperor. Once anything goes wrong, I'm afraid I won't even be able to protect myself. A few bottles of amethyst honey are far from enough. I've already said this, it's my sincerity. Don't force me to go to the extreme. Yunyang was taken aback. He thought for a moment and said, to be honest, Crane King, I vaguely know that Crane King has some human cultivators in your hands through certain channels. That's why I came up with the idea of making this trip. The human race and my race are enemies, so it's not too much for us to manipulate them. Therefore, it shouldn't be too difficult for Crane King. However, from what Crane King has said just now, it seems that you have some ulterior motives. This old man has been presumptuous. However, this old man really needs human practitioners to prolong his life, and the only thing I can offer is the purple crystal honey. Although the purple crystal queen bee honey I gave to your wife is of the highest quality, I still have 2 bottles of purple crystal queen bee honey that I have in my private collection. I used it to prolong my life. I can give 1 bottle to Crane King as a reward for his help. He said softly, my amethyst queen bee honey is extraordinarily potent. Just a sip and you'll be able to maintain your youth forever. It can also heal injuries to your spirit and make up for the damage to your origin. In fact, if you drink it at a critical moment, you can use its medicinal power to break through the barrier of your cultivation base. I believe Your Highness Crane King knows about this. Crane King's eyes shone, but he asked suspiciously, since you have such an invaluable treasure, why do you need to seek further? Just use the amethyst queen bee honey to break through the barrier? Isn't this a waste of effort? Yunyang chuckled dryly. Your Highness Crane King is at the pinnacle of this world. Why ask when you already know the answer? During the process of breakthrough, the danger is secondary. Just the burning of my life force alone is enough to make it difficult for me to survive. With the few years of life I have left, how can I bear to burn it? I'm afraid I'll burn myself to death before I can break through the barrier. The old fox needs at least 300 years of lifespan to be able to withstand the combustion of this breakthrough. This is also the biggest reason why most cultivators will find a place to wait for death when they reach the limit of their lifespan of 300 years. I've thought of countless arcane arts, but only this art of stripping the target's bloodline and soul to nourish myself can allow me to increase my life force in a short period of time, allowing me to have some form of success when I break through the barrier later. Just as Yunyang finished speaking, he chuckled self-deprecatingly and shook his head, not saying another word. Crane King nodded slowly, but his expression grew increasingly solemn as he pondered. Violet's words were sincere, they should be from the bottom of his heart. More importantly, if it was the amethyst queen bee honey of a higher level, it would be worth it for him to make an exchange. Actually, the old fox was already biased in the current situation. If he had insisted on using the honey, Crane King would have agreed to it in the end. After all his women had gone crazy for the honey, and he was actually the one at a disadvantage. However, he had not expected this fellow to reveal his final trump card, the amethyst queen bee honey, in fear of failure. Although this was already a pleasant surprise, it would be even better if he could earn more from it. Based on this thought, the Crane King rolled his eyes and said, You've said before that apart from you, no one else will be able to make the purple crystal honey appear in the world in 1,000 years. In that case, 1 bottle of royal honey is not enough. I need at least 5 bottles of royal honey. Otherwise, I suggest you find another way. Yunyang stood up and left. I only have 2 bottles here, or rather less than 2 bottles. I've already taken 2 sips of the second bottle. I've already hung on by the skin of my teeth twice. Your Highness Crane King doesn't even have a drop more, let alone 5 bottles. Even with these 2 bottles, I can only give you 1 bottle. It's impossible to have more. Crane King chuckled and said, 2 bottles it is then. I don't care if it's 2 whole bottles. Yunyang's wrinkled old fox head shook. No. If I give it all to you, even if I achieve my wish as a human cultivator, I won't be able to continue living without the amethyst queen bee honey that can save my life. King Crane's asking for an exorbitant price is too ruthless. Crane King sneered. Do you think you still have room to negotiate? I insist, what are you going to do about it? Yunyang thought for a while and said resolutely, 1.5 bottles at most. I must keep half a bottle. If Crane King is still insistent, I can only take my leave. Or perhaps Crane King plans to go our separate ways and both sides will suffer. Behind the screen, the eyes of the demonesses were already red with rage. Going their separate ways and both sides suffering was something they would never allow to happen. They could not wait to rush out and grab Crane King by his neck to force him to agree. 1 bottle would do. 1 sip and you'll be young forever. That's more than enough. Why won't you agree? What are you hesitating for? You're driving me crazy with anxiety. Crane King could acutely feel the overwhelming resentment coming from behind the screen. He could not help trembling as he pretended to slap the table and stand up. Gritting his teeth, he said, All right. 1.5 bottles it is then. Deal. If so, please hand over the amethyst queen bee honey and queen bee honey. Crane King said faintly, I won't go back on my word on what I've promised you. Forgive me, Your Highness Crane King. This old man has roamed the world, and what I don't believe in the most are oaths and promises. Yunyang said neither humbly nor haughtily, I only believe in heaven's will. Umph. The Crane King snorted heavily. This old fox actually wants me to make an oath to heaven's will. Chapter 1254. The heavenly oath, in addition to ensuring that Crane King's promise is fulfilled, you must also ensure my safety in Sky Crown City. A thunderous roar and the entire Sky Crown City trembled. The glory of the heavenly oath let the entire Sky Crown City know that the city governor seemed to have promised someone something. This was a big deal. Crane King's face turned green as he looked at the excited women rushing out from behind the screen after obtaining the purple crystal honey. He closed his eyes and panted heavily. Don't take the royal honey. Madam stepped forward. This is what we need to save our lives in the future. As for the rest, looking at the 303 bottles of purple crystal honey on the table, Madam's heart felt like it was bleeding. There were originally 500 bottles. If she had known that she would have to agree to the conditions sooner or later, why did she drag it out for a few days? She used this trick and that, and in the end she lost 197 bottles for nothing. The pain was indescribable. 197 bottles. They were all mine. Everyone take 3 bottles first. The rest will be kept in the treasury, awaiting my husband's reward in the future. No demons are allowed to touch them, violators will be killed. Madam made the final decision. Although the other women were not happy, they could only obey Madam's authority. At least Madam did not intend to monopolize the majority, which was enough to comfort the demons. However, with each person taking 3 bottles, 150 bottles were gone, leaving only 153 bottles. Think about it, if you take them all, you will only drink them once. If you leave them in case your looks are damaged in the future, or there's still a chance to make up for it. Madam's words made the female demons understand a lot. This was really a good thing to say. Thank you for your advice, Madam. Let's go. Looking at the Madam leaving with the honey, Crane King let out a long sigh. Why do I have to marry so many wives? This is what I deserve. Aren't they all beasts if they return to their original forms? Sigh. Violet, come with me. I'll help you fulfill my promise. Crane King stood up, his face extremely gloomy. Even though the Crane King had the upper hand in this deal, he still felt that he was not in control. Even though the gains were far beyond his expectations, he was still not satisfied. Thank you, Crane King. Yun Yang followed suit and left. Yun Yang followed the Crane King into an underground secret tunnel. Both of them executed their skills and sprinted down the secret tunnel, going at least dozens of miles down the tunnel. Yun Yang was surprised to find out that the environment and atmosphere around the secret tunnel was unusual. When he first entered, he was surrounded by soil. This was understandable, it would be strange if there was no soil in the tunnel. However, after a few thousand feet, the surroundings of the tunnel had turned into rocks. This was not unusual, it was still the norm. However, after a few thousand feet, the surroundings had turned into steel walls. This was a little unusual. But along the way they passed through the iron mines, forming a certain scale of iron walls. Although it was illogical, it was still acceptable. But after a few hundred zhang, the walls were actually made of gold. This was completely illogical. After all, even if they passed through the iron mine and then the gold mine would never automatically form a gold wall. In the end, what caught his eye was a huge door that was completely made of amethyst. It shone brightly. Both of them came to the door. The Crane King stopped in his tracks. Let me make this clear. If any part of what is inside is leaked, you and I will both die a horrible death. The Crane King looked at Yun Yang and uttered each word clearly. Your Highness, please don't worry. I've spent so much time and effort just to survive. I won't dig my own grave and seek my own death. Yun Yang sighed. The Crane King smirked coldly. I hope you remember what you've said. As he spoke, he placed his hand on the door. A surge of demonic chi burst forth and the power of his soul surged at the same time. The amethyst door glowed with colorful lights. Then the amethyst door slowly opened and a thick, rich demonic chi gushed out. Yun Yang was not a real demon after all, so he was instinctively resistant to the sudden surge of demonic chi. However, he still had to put on a look of pleasant surprise. He opened his mouth wide and sucked in a deep breath, the billowing demonic chi entering his mouth in a single gulp. Yun Yang's expression was naturally one of extreme delight, but the moment the demonic chi entered his mouth, it had already been transferred into his deific consciousness space, as if he had stolen the sky and changed the sun. Similarly, the Crane King was also instinctively inhaling and exhaling, but he was obviously more restrained. After a few breaths, he stopped Yun Yang and said, "Stop inhaling." Yun Yang looked at the Crane King reluctantly and stopped. This is the demonic chi of my entire tribe. It doesn't belong to you alone. The deal between us is not here. The Crane King said faintly, "Come in with me. Don't cause unnecessary trouble." Yun Yang followed the Crane King inside. The amethyst door behind him closed slowly, cutting off the deific consciousness connection outside the cave. It was like they were in two different worlds. After passing through 7 doors, even with Yun Yang's experience, he could not help but be amazed by what he saw. It was hard to imagine what kind of manpower and resources would be needed to build such a huge project in the barren land of the demon race. This place had to be at least tens of thousands of feet underground. Indeed, all the way from the amethyst door was a gentle slope that extended downwards. There were 7 doors in front and behind him. The level of defense was already at its extreme. Since there was a powerful deific consciousness probing, one could only pass through 2 or 3 doors at most. However, there were a total of 7 doors here. When they came to the last door, 2 Royal St. Pinnacle demonic cranes stopped the Crane King. "My king, where do you want to go?" "Come down to check on the progress." "Who is this fox?" "It's a special envoy sent by the royalty." "Please?" Yun Yang was speechless. A king of his own race was entering, yet they were obstructing the examination? No wonder the Crane King had been so reluctant when he had proposed the terms. It turned out that it was not an easy task at all. The door opened under the control of the 2 demonic cranes and the Crane King led Yun Yang in again. What appeared in front of him was an empty field that was at least 1,000 feet tall. Countless towering pillars glowed with mysterious patterns, holding up the sky. The countless pearls that adorned it illuminated an area of several tens of thousands of meters, making it even clearer and more transparent than the sky and the sun. As Yun Yang looked around, he could see countless small houses standing in the middle of the field. There were also many children running around playing or cultivating. There were also children who were fighting with weapons. Further away there were also people training and battling, but their opponents were all adults. There were both men and women. Around the small houses, there were many railings on which clothes and bedding were hung, adding to the atmosphere of life. Just by looking at it, there were at least tens of thousands of people living here. Were these humans? Could they be the cultivators from the bound of universe that had been captured all these years? Why were there so many of them? Chapter 1255. Yun Yang's pupils shrank abruptly. The scale of the number of people in front of him was almost the entire population of a small human town. Moreover, the entire town was filled with cultivators and profounders. Furthermore, there were many human martial artists here, building families, raising children, and reproducing. What was this situation? It was thought-provoking, yet inconceivable at the same time. Although Yun Yang was extraordinarily intelligent and had always thought of things that others could not, he was still bewildered as his thoughts raced. He was stunned on the spot. Had the demon race abducted these people just to keep them in captivity? Was this not a little too comfortable? Or perhaps, there was a greater conspiracy behind all of this? Beside him, the Crane King's eerie voice rang out, "Violet? I'm not interested to know if you're the real Violet or a fake name. I don't care, this has nothing to do with the grand scheme of things. You've been stubborn and wanted to borrow my power to collect humans to restore your original state. This is true, but there must be some other reason behind it. You've probably learned about the things before you through some channel, but it's still shocking to see it with your own eyes. It's completely different from your original expectations. I've done what I've promised you. Everything you need is in front of you. You can stay here and collect them yourself. No one will stop you, or rather, no one can stop you." Yun Yang was taken aback and asked, "Crane King, what do you mean?" The Crane King said eerily, "Don't you know what I'm talking about? I've made a heaven's vow, so of course, I'll make sure that your wish is fulfilled. I'll give you enough human martial artists for you to study and use. There are more than 90,000 human martial artists here, it should be enough for you. Secondly, I've also promised to ensure your safety in Sky Crown City." This is absolutely true. Although this place has already left the boundary of Sky Crown City, there is no one who can kill you here. Just relax. The Crane King smiled sinisterly. "Lastly, I wish you good luck." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Yun Yang hollered, "You're leaving now? Even if I succeed and recover from my injuries, how am I going to get out?" "That's your problem. In my oath, I only promised to ensure your safety, but it didn't include bringing you back." Just as Crane King's voice trailed off, he was already by the door. Yun Yang pounced on him furiously. Crane King snorted, "Go back." A back kick landed on Yun Yang's chest, sending him flying away. It was at this moment that the last door closed tightly. The Crane King's figure disappeared from this space. Another voice rang in Yun Yang's ears, "I've already made it clear that this realm is no longer within Sky Crown City's boundaries, yet you still dare to be so arrogant in front of me. You're seeking your own death, what do you have to do with others? Outside the door. The Crane King who had mocked them did not leave. Instead he stood by the door and listened attentively. However, he could hear the sounds of the door being attacked repeatedly. The corner of his mouth curled into a cold smile as he walked away with his hands behind his back. Saint Emperor? Even a peak holy venerable would not be able to break through the restrictions personally set up by the Crane Sovereign. Old fox, just wait for your death inside. Maybe 10 years, maybe 8 years later, when you've reached the end of your life, I'll come and collect your corpse. The Crane King guffawed, feeling that all the frustration he had accumulated over the past few days had finally been vented out. Seeing that the Crane King had disappeared, Yunyang removed his demonic form at once and reverted to his human form. Then he summoned his strongest combat power and attacked the door and the barrier in a frenzied manner. However, he only managed to attack a few dozen times before he stopped. There was only a faint smile on Yunyang's lips. He did not feel the slightest bit disappointed that he had been tricked by the other party. What I wanted was to enter such a place. When I know the truth, I don't believe that there's still a large space in this world that can seal me away, with my ability to transform. Do you think you're the gods of the universe? After the commotion earlier, especially when Yunyang had attacked with all his might, the people inside had naturally noticed Yunyang's presence and were looking in his direction. Seeing a human youth attacking the door, they were all stunned. A moment later, a few silhouettes flew over and landed in front of Yunyang. The newcomers were a few elderly people, all of them looking at Yunyang warily. You are? Yunyang looked back at them blankly. You are? The few of them looked pained. Young brother, were you captured by the demonic race as well? Yunyang sighed. It's a long story. A muscular man asked doubtfully, why is it only you this time? Yunyang replied blankly, so what if it's only me? Is there anything wrong with that? In the past, at least hundreds, thousands or even tens of thousands were brought in at one go. There's never been a situation where one person is alone. The group was extremely puzzled. As for Yunyang, he had extended his deific consciousness during this initial contact and probed these people. They were indeed all humans. Not a single one of the demon race was hidden among them. There seemed to be some unknown energy in this space that was suppressing the demonic power of the demonic race, causing the demonic aura that was constantly produced from the void to be pushed out as much as possible. The demonic aura that Yunyang had inhaled at the door had actually been expelled from here. Are they all humans here? Yunyang asked. The elders sighed. Yes, they are all humans. They are all humans who were captured by the demonic race. He looked at Yunyang with pity. It's a pity that you came here at such a young age. I'm afraid that your children and grandchildren will have to stay here and endure the baptism of time. Sigh. Are there any demonic race here? No, the demonic race can't survive here. Why? Because they want to ensure the integrity of the souls of the humans who live here. Once the demonic race enters, both sides will definitely fight each other, thus creating the most extreme atmosphere of killing. After all, even if they don't kill us, we will kill them. Therefore, there will be no demonic race or demonic beast here. Oh? Yunyang's expression turned indifferent as he looked at the people in front of him. He suddenly asked, does this mean that everyone here is simply confined? Their movements and cultivation base aren't actually restricted or restrained. The elder at the front said, how can there be no restrictions at all? But the restrictions are rather different. 99% of the people here will enjoy the rest of their lives. It's rare for them to die a violent death. No violent death. Yunyang repeated the two words and said, you have all lived here for a long time, but the demonic race purposely built such a place. What is their real purpose? It can't be for the people they captured to enjoy the rest of their lives here, can it? The group looked at each other, no one answered for a long while. Sigh, this question has also trapped us for countless years, but we still don't know the demonic race's intention, an elder answered with difficulty. Chapter 1256. Yunyang asked, don't you have any guesses? How can there be no guesses? There's no need to guess at all. The demon race has set up such a grand scene, expending so much demonic energy and material resources, as well as so much time. They must be planning something big. It's most likely related to the demon race's invasion of the bounded universe. Everyone has guessed this since a long time ago. One of the middle-aged men said, however, after so many years, everyone's situation has remained the same. Perhaps this is an indirect proof that the demon race's original intention has not succeeded. The others were smiling as well, their smiles filled with relief and joy. Yunyang, on the other hand, sighed softly. Did not succeed? How do you all know that the demon race did not succeed? Just like what the people before him had said, the demon race had already expended a great deal of resources to maintain the living conditions of these imprisoned people. If they did not reap a considerable amount of benefits, they would have long ended this inexplicable plan. Then are you all really going to live peacefully here and enjoy the rest of your lives? Yunyang asked coldly. Everyone was instantly speechless when they heard this, and many of them revealed embarrassed expressions. Why do you have so many questions? The muscular middle-aged man spoke after a while. We don't want to stay in this foreign land for long, but what can we do if we don't live here? We're just fish on the chopping block now, we can't go anywhere else even if we want to. It's inevitable that everyone wants to escape when they first come in. We all have the same thought. The elder was rather open-minded. Young man, there will be a time when your belly full of questions will be answered. However, stay here first. There will be plenty of time for you to understand the matters of this land in the future. Under these people's arrangements, Yunyang was successfully allocated a small wooden house. Although there were only 2 rooms, one for sleeping and the other for entertaining guests, it was more than enough. Yunyang had already investigated that the highest cultivation base among the humans here was only at the pinnacle of the Saint King level. Naturally, no one had noticed Yunyang's actual strength and did not pay much attention to his arrival. Similarly, Yunyang did not care about their attitudes. After sitting quietly in the room for a while, Yunyang could not help feeling a little exasperated. The 2 rooms were great. One was a more private bedroom and the other was a living room, but how could he have any guests in this land? However, after a day and a half, Yunyang began to treat them again. Yunyang quickly gained a general understanding of the people in the area and made a list of the 10 people with the highest cultivation base, 10 people with the best popularity, and a few people with the highest prestige. Then he began to treat them to a meal with a clear goal in mind. Yunyang's interspatial zone had never been lacking in heaven and earth treasures, especially after the incident in Tianfa Holy Land and during his time in the demonic realm. He had also plundered some resources, so it was not difficult for him to treat them now. When it came to treating, basically all the people on the list came. Not only did they come themselves, but they also brought their families. Those with families brought their wives and children. Yunyang was not offended at all. He readily prepared some children's toys and good food and went on a long walk. Obviously, Yunyang's treat this time was to be perfect, so that it would be easier for him to carry out his next move when everyone was in a mess. Yunyang was rather surprised by the situation inside. At the very least, it was completely different from the prison situation that he had imagined it to be. Everything that he saw was like the demon race had specially built a paradise and brought these humans here to settle down and take care of them for the rest of their lives. Would the demon race be so kind? Or perhaps, what goal did they want to achieve by doing this? On the same night, the area in front of Yunyang's small house was bustling with activity. Countless children were running around with the candies that Yunyang had given out. There were also women who were picking out accessories or dresses that they could wear. From Yunyang's point of view, it was like going to a market. What was more, Yunyang could not see much sorrow in the men, women, old and young. Basically, everyone looked calm and peaceful. It was as if they had been living here for a long time and had accepted their fate. Even if they did not accept their fate, it would only be more painful. There was no other way. After a night of chatting, Yunyang finally understood a lot of things. The demon race had abducted many young human disciples here. Other than the requirement of quantity, there was also a further requirement. There had to be a balance of men and women. The ratio could not be out of balance. Other than the discomfort of the bumpy road, those who were abducted were completely free once they arrived here. They could continue their cultivation journey here, although the effect was not great. They could also find a woman they liked here, build a family, raise children, and live a peaceful life. Food and necessities were all available, even more complete than what Yunyang had brought. There was a separate spot on the north side of the residential area that only the demon race was allowed to enter. Every once in a while, the demon race would come in and collect all the trash that the humans had abandoned there. At the same time, they would bring in a massive amount of resources to supply the humans' daily needs. Even when they met the humans occasionally, they did not offend each other, staying out of each other's way and minding their own business. This treatment, at least in Yunyang's opinion, was incredible. It was simply incredible. He did not have to do anything and no one cared if he created trash as he pleased. There were demons to clean it up and there was an almost continuous supply of new resources. What kind of treatment was this? The living environment was clean and tidy almost all the time. Other than the slightly smaller space where one could move around and could not roam freely like in the bounded universe, It was a peaceful nest in every other aspect. There was no need to worry about getting rich, supporting a wife and children, or having no friends. There was no need to worry about anything. If one wanted to play chess, one could always find a chess partner who could be considered a match among tens of thousands of people. If one wanted to drink, one could go up and shout and many would answer. Even if one got drunk and started a fight on the street, no one would actually die from it. After so many years of imprisonment, there were less than 10 cases of accidental deaths, and they were all caused by affairs such as adultery. As for the demon race's mystical beasts, they had never appeared here. All of you should know that the demon race's resources are scarce. Countless of their people are still living on the edge of life and death. How can they provide you with living conditions and quality of life so limitlessly and unconditionally? There must be something fishy here. Yunyang looked at these people with a frown. Haven't any of you investigated? Of course I have. Basically every newcomer has spent a lot of time and effort to investigate those who have not given up on leaving this realm. Unfortunately, no one has been able to find any useful information. In the end they could only leave it be. An elder who sat at the guest seat said seriously, "Besides, this old man can also guarantee one thing. Although we've been imprisoned here for so many years, we've never done anything that's unworthy of our human mentality. We haven't even imparted our cultivation methods. The demon race is our nemesis. Before this righteousness we can always be sure. The first thing we teach every child when they are born is that they are a human, not a demon. One day they will return to the human world and breathe in the spiritual atmosphere that belongs to the human race. Return? From the beginning to the end, it has always been our life goal and it will never change. In fact, we've always been waiting for the human masters to rescue us, or waiting for the day the demon race is annihilated by the human race, or the day we can break out of this place. As long as we can escape, even if we have to perish together with the demon race, our lives will not be in vain. Therefore, although the people here know that it's hard to improve in cultivation, they still cultivate diligently after considering the possibility of their realm slipping. Of course, there are some who have no future and come here to eat and wait for death, but it's only a small portion of them. The others echoed in agreement, drinking and reminiscing about the times they had spent outside. Not long after, tears streamed down their cheeks. There really aren't any signs? Yunyang was extremely puzzled. Then why does the demon race keep so many people? When this old man first came, I've thought that if the demon race uses my life to harm the bound of universe, then I'll commit suicide immediately to avoid a lifetime of regret, the elder chuckled bitterly. But, from the beginning to the end, there's not even a scene of me being forced. Me too. Similar voices came one after another. Yunyang could not help feeling a headache coming on. Can I take a look at your bodies? Or the state of your cultivation base? Or even your meridians? The elder looked at him quietly and said, "Go ahead if you want to. We've checked each other more than 1,000 times over the years." So, young man, how old are you this year? Don't you have a wife outside? Another person said, "Even if you have a wife, it's useless now. Look at how handsome this young man is. Let's discuss and see if there's a suitable girl who hasn't married yet in any family. There are quite a lot of them, but with his looks, he'll be snatched away like crazy." Everyone began to ponder about this matter. Yunyang did not know whether to laugh or cry, but he did not slack off. He began to check everyone's bodies, divine senses and divine souls. However, after a long time he found nothing. Everything was normal. You should all be the best of the best. Many of you are from sects with celestial luck banners, right? Can you force each of your celestial luck banners out for me to see? Yunyang asked. Everyone was indifferent to this. They had nothing to do anyway, so they might as well play with this kid. What if he really found out something was amiss? Many of them began to cultivate, and the shadows of the celestial luck banners appeared one after another, each with their own chi. Chapter 1257. Yunyang carefully observed the celestial luck banners in the sky. As far as he could see, the chi of each celestial luck banner was in an illusory state, but he could still see the name of the school it belonged to. There seemed to be nothing unusual. Everyone lifted their heads and looked at the celestial luck banners, lost in thought for a while. To this day, we can only look at each other's celestial luck banners to recall the past of our hometown. The celestial luck banner fluttered in the sky, but everyone's gaze wandered along with the banner. The atmosphere around them was filled with nostalgia and memories, and many people were shedding tears because of it. Could they never go back to their hometown again? The soft sigh sounded like sleep talk, appearing inexplicably, but it was a trembling sound that broke everyone's heart. Cheers. Everyone raised their cups together, mixing their homesickness and tears into the wine, and downed it in one gulp, intending to get drunk and forget all their worries. It was a pity that the wine had entered their hearts, making them even more depressed. Only Yun Yang's state of mind was not affected by this melancholy. He was still carefully studying the celestial luck banners. As he stared at them again and again, he vaguely felt that something was wrong, but there was nothing unusual about the celestial luck banner as it floated back and forth. The celestial luck banner was closely related to its owner. Although it was difficult for the cultivation base of the people in front of him to reach the peak, there was no hindrance in other aspects. He was not willing to give up just like that. He pondered hard, hoping that he could gain enlightenment from the vague feeling just now and break the stalemate. After a while, everyone began to retrieve the celestial luck banner. Actually, everyone knew that although Xing Xing spoke with certainty vehemently, and tried her best to motivate people, she had just been captured and had not yet accepted it psychologically. Therefore, it was expected that she would not be able to see through it. This kind of emotion and mentality. All the humans who had just arrived here, without exception, felt that they were different and could definitely be the main characters who could break the stalemate. However, how could it be so easy to be the main character? Wait. Yun Yang stood up abruptly. Take it back slowly. He pointed at everyone's celestial luck banner and said word by word, look at each other carefully. Is your celestial luck banner missing a corner? Missing a corner? When the crowd heard that, they could not help but feel puzzled. Following his words, they stared at the celestial luck banner phantom of the person beside them and immediately exclaimed, it seems like there are some defects, but I'm not sure yet. They had been here all year round, often forcing out the celestial luck banners to reminisce. But for a long time he didn't seem to notice any abnormalities. It was as if it had been like this from the beginning, and he had gotten used to it, thinking that he had surpassed it. If I'm not wrong, the loss of the celestial luck banner is a negative effect caused by the accumulation of years. Yun Yang said slowly, a year may be just a little bit less, a tiny bit, so little that you won't even notice it. As he spoke, he slowly revealed his celestial luck banner. The words residents of 9 Supremes fluttered in the wind and loomed before everyone's eyes. Everyone was surprised to find that the celestial luck banner displayed by Yun Yang was flawless. In that instant, everyone felt as if they were struck by lightning. When they looked at their own celestial luck banner, they did not know what went wrong for a moment. But when they compared it with the new celestial luck banner, they could immediately see the difference. The other party's celestial luck banner was intact and solemn. This was the true elegance and aura of the celestial luck banner. On the other hand, their celestial luck banner was not only missing a small corner, but even its color and aura were much dimmer. It was as if the original color had been worn away by the long days of idleness. Why is it like this? The leading old man was at a loss and asked involuntarily. He looked at the others and saw that they were also at a loss and bewilderment. No one spoke for a long time. The room fell into absolute silence in an instant, so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. It was the most striking contrast to the noises coming from outside, where there were women's voices and children's laughter. However, the crowd just listened dumbfounded. They even felt that the voices of their family members outside were so far away. They were clearly right beside their ears, but they felt that the voices came from beyond the sky and were out of place. Because right now, everyone felt a chill that penetrated into their hearts. Even their thoughts seemed to be frozen at this moment. The more than 20 people gathered here were all from sects that owned celestial luck banners. Naturally, they were the best of the best, and their intelligence was far beyond that of ordinary people. As they came to a realization, they turned their stiff necks and looked at Yin Yang. What's going on? Their eyes shone with extreme fear. Could it be? Yin Yang heaved a heavy sigh. The other party has used some kind of method to obtain the celestial luck banner in your bodies and form it into another special energy. This is the most likely direction of the current situation. Looking at the ashen faces of the people in front of him, Yun Yang suddenly could not bear to continue. You were plundered by the demon clan and forced to live here. It's true that you have no choice. Everyone is even very proud that we have not betrayed humanity and are still upholding the bottom line. But in fact, you may have already caused some kind of harm to the human world. Once the bottom line of everyone's psychological bottom line was crossed, how could they prevent their state of mind from collapsing instantly? This would be a cruel but unavoidable topic. We really haven't done anything. The elder stood up abruptly, his eyes filled with fear but also determination. We haven't done anything to harm humanity. We don't even know why the celestial luck banner is missing a corner. We've done nothing for so long. He seemed to be explaining, but not to Yunyang but to himself. Just as Yunyang was thinking, this was already the spiritual pillar that they were relying on here. If this belief crumbled, they would not be able to survive. Why is it missing a corner? Why is it dimming? More than 20 people racked their brains. The answer was already in their hearts, but they still hoped for the slightest possibility. The top priority now is to find out the source of this matter. What special facilities are there here? Yunyang asked. Since there had been a change, there must be a reason for it. Yunyang felt that if his guess was right, perhaps the passage that the Holy Land of Divine Punishment had opened 30 years in advance was because of this. Following these people around, Yunyang scanned through the entire area. Soon, his gaze locked onto a spot that was especially clean. It was a long row of green plants that had been transplanted here. They were neither tall nor sturdy, only about 100 feet tall at most. They had a huge canopy similar to a weeping willow, full of gentleness. What caught Yunyang's attention was the long row of trees arranged in the north. The huge canopies above them formed a private space that was difficult to see through. Chapter 1258. It had to be said that this was an extremely beautiful scenery in the area. Anyone who saw it would inevitably be immersed in it, forgetting to leave. As far as the eye could see, the lush greenery was dreamy and dreamy. Even the air was soothing, almost fulfilling all of humanity's desires for scenery. Yunyang's heart skipped a beat. Focusing his gaze, he saw that the long branches of the shade hung down softly. As the breeze blew, the hundreds of millions of branches swayed gently with the wind. Countless soft green leaves swayed with the movement as a faint, elegant fragrance permeated the air. The fragrance was almost indiscernible. If one was not especially sensitive or someone who paid special attention like Yunyang, they would not be able to smell it at all. It was a comforting feeling that seeped into one's heart, making one unable to stop and forgetting to leave. Those who smelled it would probably be more intoxicated than those who did not smell it. Furthermore, as the branches swayed gently, bits and pieces of starlight slowly floated and swayed in the air. The faint light that could only be seen with the naked eye disappeared as soon as it entered one's field of vision. It was a marvelous sight indeed. Countless glimmers of light and darkness formed this mystical space that only had light but was not dazzling to the eyes. Here all sorts of beautiful sensations, romance, arousal, comfort, contentment, could be found. What tree is this? It looks rather mystical. Yunyang's gaze sharpened abruptly. This should be a native species of the demonic realm. None of us can call it by its real name. We're used to calling it the light of dust. Because his brilliance, although like a weak speck of dust, the brilliance emitted in the air is extremely humble and shallow, and his existence is even more temporary, but he still strives to add a little more beauty to this world, a little more brilliance. The elder's low voice was filled with frustration. Yunyang stood up abruptly and studied the quiet spot again and again. He looked at the direction, the sky, and the arrangement. Everyone should be staying under that tree often, right? Yunyang's gaze swept across the area sharply. Everyone was silent. Silence usually meant tacit agreement. What are all of you doing under that tree? Yunyang asked in a low voice. There was still silence, an awkward silence. After a long time, the old man said in a voice that was extremely difficult to speak, "Ahem. Cultivate under that tree. Or think. Even chat under that tree, drink tea. What else?" Yunyang asked. Cough cough. There will also be some young people, who will talk about love over there, or perhaps, when their love is at its peak, cough cough. Yunyang's expression darkened at once. It was rare to see such an expression on Yunyang's face. Yunyang had long mastered the art of not showing his emotions on his face, keeping all his emotions in check. Now, however, he had actually lost his composure. Yunyang thought about it and asked, "Can I go over and take a look?" Ahem, of course. Yunyang walked slowly into the area where the lush greenery was. It was only when he got closer that Yunyang realized in shock what the forest looked like. It was even more mystical than what he had seen before. Just the flexibility of the branches and leaves had already reached an unimaginable level. It just hung down to the ground, extending a little, then stopped growing. This wasn't strange at all. When older weeping willows sprouted their branches, it was a similar situation. However, the many branches that hung down from this tree actually formed a wide space of their own. Countless drooping branches constructed many small houses that were naturally formed. Furthermore, they were the kind of fragrant, starry, and relatively private small spaces. Yun-yang took a closer look and realized that there were some small signs in the small houses. It read, "Do not disturb." Yun-yang understood its use at once. If he wanted to do something, he only needed to hang this small sign on the branches outside. Basically, it could prevent uninvited guests from entering and disturbing the peace. Yun-yang tried it out. He stayed inside and hung a small sign outside. Once the small sign was pasted on the soft branches, it hung on automatically. Then Yun-yang realized in shock that the space had really become an absolutely sealed private space. Not even a speck of starlight could seep in. Even when he tried to move the surrounding branches, he could not move them. Only by extending his hand from where it had been and taking the sign down could he regain his freedom of entry and exit. Other than that, the people outside could not enter and the people inside could not come out. How is this arrangement just mystical? It's simply unbelievable and appalling. Looking at the giant tree trunk that was so thick that it would take a dozen people to wrap their arms around it, Yun-yang's only thought was awe. To think that there was such a magical plant in this world. In the next moment, Yun-yang took the badge back and it returned to its original state, no different from before. Looking at the people outside, Yun-yang was silent for a while like the rest of them. He already knew what the main function of this private space was. It was the best place for men and women to meet. They could do whatever they wanted here. They did not have to worry about anything at all, nor did they have to worry about anyone interfering. At the same time, it was also the best place to calm down and cultivate in seclusion. Can a few people come? What for? A few cultivators with a higher cultivation base can meditate inside. Just concentrate on your usual cultivation, or it would be even better to comprehend the origin. The 3 trees on the left will do. All right. Can you find some young men and women, the kind that are deeply in love? Yun-yang made another outrageous request. At this point, it was obvious what he wanted the other party to do inside. It was easy to imagine. Yun-yang, who was a newbie in the field of love, was intelligent and quick-witted, but he still found it difficult to speak of it. It took him a long while to finish his sentence. All right. However, the people outside agreed readily. This place had been established for a long time. The local customs that had been formed were already different from the human territory. What Yun-yang had said was awkward, but it was to create opportunities for the young. To the residents here, it was an easy task. Other than these, no one is allowed to enter for the next few nights. No problem. I'll stay in this treehouse tonight and sense the situation carefully to see if there's a problem here. We'll talk about it later. Yun-yang said seriously. The 20 people outside fell into silence again. After a long while they said, "Brother Yun, take care, please." You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.